across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, very big welcome to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's just approaching 3 minutes past 10 o'clock, and whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for joining us today. So much to talk about, as we always do. We're going to be here all the way until 1. And if you do miss anything from the show, you missed anything from this week, I think we had a corkers of shows this week, if I say so myself, thanks to my fabulous guests and your fabulous calls. But do have a look at my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. And if you all just subscribe, they'll make me stop saying it. Thank you. Anyway, coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking about the nearly 500 migrants a day who are signing up for benefits as claims by foreign nationals hit a record high, according to official figures. Total number of foreign nationals receiving it rose to nearly 1.3 million. It's an increase of over 6% on the previous year. This, of course, comes as the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is announcing new laws making migrants' right to settle in the UK dependent on, not claiming benefits. Yeah, what a surprise. Something like of 1.3 million who came over in the Boris wave over the last couple of years. About 800,000 of those are in low-skilled work. So once they actually do get, leave to stay, they're eligible for benefits. I mean, we are in mad territory, people. An awful lot of those are EU citizens. Well, Reform leader Nigel Farage says he wants to basically stop EU citizens from claiming those benefits. We're starting an all-out war with the EU over that, ripping up that Brexit deal. Well, some of us may think that's probably quite a good thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that. Plus, trans people could be banned from single-sex spaces based on what they look like, which is as good a way as any, given there isn't a single piece of paper, including a birth certificate or passport, that can actually say whether someone is a man or a woman, because we've gone into that mad territory of letting people say how they feel on official documents. But this is according to new equalities guidance, yet to be published by the government, but the Times has seen a copy of it. Apparently, Labour's a bit worried about a potential political backlash. Oh dear, are they? Relying on facts. A small matter of international affairs as well. Ukraine could be forced to lease part of its territory to Russia under a US plan to end the war. Well, yeah, I mean, to appease Putin. That would end the war, wouldn't it? The Trump administration deal would see Kyiv cede control of the eastern Donbass region while maintaining legal ownership of that territory. Russia would pay an undisclosed rental fee for de facto control of the area. And the 28-point plan by Donald Trump, which apparently agreed in secret between the US and Russia in a recent flurry of talks, renews fears of Ukraine being frozen out of all discussion. But it also includes handing over territory to Russia that they haven't even managed to claim already through warfare, and also basically ceding so much territory in the Donbass region, so many key regions, leaving pretty much a free path for the tanks to roll to Kyiv as and when Vladimir Putin decides, after maybe having a little bit of a battle rest for his troops. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We're also going to be talking about Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband's Clean Power Plan and, of course, the Epstein files. The House of Representatives and the Senate and Donald Trump has signed off on the Epstein files being released in the next 30 days. But is everyone getting a bit too excited about what's going to be in them? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. In particular, I want to know about your thoughts on Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. Basically, let's face it, if it did get forced on Zelensky, if the Europeans don't step up, it would force Zelensky to give up territory for cash to Putin and pave the way for, at any time of his choosing, a full Russian annexation by Vladimir Putin. What's your reaction to that? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. Delighted to say today, joining us, given there are actually quite a lot of sort of international affairs and defence issues in the news, is the one and only Philip Ingram MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Lovely to see you again.
Morning.
We missed you
Good to be
last
back.
week,
Yes.
and great to have you here. I want to ask you just first about Epstein and moving on from it, because that's the big news overnight. Donald Trump has signed that bill into law, and now there are 30 days now for the Epstein files to be released by his government. There's a lot of people pointing out that he could have actually just released them anywhere at any time. Full agreement from the Senate, full agreement from the House of Representatives. Move on. What do you think we are going to learn from these?
More sensational isms about people we probably haven't heard of. I think they've got the main stuff out with...
Because people won't... Andrew Trump, Clinton...
exactly.
Clinton denied any allegations, I must clarify.
There might be some of that, but the length of time it's taken has given plenty of time for all of these very, very powerful people to ensure that those elements of the files have either been redacted or disappeared. They're not on file anymore.
Will that have happened?
Oh, almost certainly. Almost certainly.
He's a former senior military intelligence officer. I mean, there was this view that, given that, the whole MAGA thing was like the conspiracy and you need to release the Epstein files and Donald Trump had, I mean, he's on record, the man had terminated his friendship with Epstein. And this whole thing, there are pictures of everyone who's famous with Epstein. He got pictures with everyone who's famous. He was a very rich, very powerful man. He went to every party. If you were in Florida or in New York, I mean, you went to something at the same time as Epstein. So, we shouldn't read too much into that. But there was the view that when he didn't release those files, that there must be something on Donald Trump.
Well, yes, but whenever there's no information, people fill vacuums with whatever they want to fill it with, and they'll try and make it as sensational as possible, because those that are doing it are after clicks.
There's no doubt at all. Anyone who's sort of looked into this at all, and you watch, even if you have to watch something, it's a brilliant Netflix 4-part documentary. Anyone who doesn't know what's going on, I mean, really, everybody knew that this guy had a thing for underage girls, right? His house was full in New York of underage girls. I mean, again, clearly 13, 14-year-old. You see the pictures of, Virginia Giuffredas. They're clearly not adults, right? They're clearly, well, she was 17 when she's alleged she had sex with consensually, even though she was trafficked with Prince Andrew. But the 13, 14, 15-year-old girls was his thing, okay? The Lolita Express, the plane to his island. Again, there are so many staff, so many police investigations, there's so much evidence from so many women with the same stories again and again and again, and so much other evidence that this was what was going on. Phone records, And
it's almost certain he did not commit suicide.
I'm so glad you agree. I mean, you know me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist about anything. The idea that a very, very, very wealthy, powerful man who's got out of every scrape so far would think that he wouldn't get it. The idea is, well, he realised his life was over. He'd been done before. He'd negotiated it down, and he basically served no time in a real prison at all. And
I suspect the only reason why Ghislaine Maxwell is still alive is that she's got something that, if she dies, will come out, and those very powerful people have no control over that.
And when you say powerful people, who are we talking about? Are we talking about security services? Or are we talking about, I don't know, the mafia? I mean, who are we talking about?
Well, you just look at the circles that he associated himself with, and it's all famous people, powerful people, politicians. We've seen Andrew Windsor being put in there. There will be other people.
And these are people who've got lots to do. I mean, look, we read stories in the papers all the time, don't we? About, say, someone who, I'm always fascinated by this story. Someone who's killed their wife for sort of 200 grand insurance. You think 200 grand? You think that was worth the risk of going to spend the rest of your life in prison? Quite apart from taking a human life, But these people have got a whole life. A whole reputation, billions of dollars tied up in not being exposed. There are people who will pay to make that go away.
Yes, and these are people that don't actually have to say anything directly. They can just suggest that something, a problem disappears, and they know nothing about it, and the problem disappears.
Well, there we are then. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think we're going to learn anything from the Epstein files? There's the big question, and I've got some big question marks about quite a lot of people who travel to that island. I've got a question mark about anybody, including Prince Andrew, Peter Mandelson, and others. Although Peter Mandelson, as we know, had no interest in underage girls. I mean, we know that for sure.
Well, yes, but if they're underage girls, there hasn't been anything that comes out to say there's underage boys or anything else there. But it wouldn't surprise me.
No, but of course we're not making that allegation. I need to make that very, very clear. But anyone who continued to be friends with, have contact with Epstein after he did actually get convicted for soliciting underage girls for trafficking, for prostitution. I mean, it was one count, but that was because it was pleaded down. Everyone knows, and everyone who knew him would have known that involved dozens and dozens and dozens of girls. And again, let's not lose sight. I mean, the tittle-tattle that we are talking about, girls. I've got a teenage daughter. The idea that 5 years ago she would have been forced to give massages and have sex with middle-aged men under first threat. I mean, just absolutely makes me feel physically sick, And we need to remember the reality of this. These are little girls who had their Charlton stolen from them. Let's also talk about another lovely man, Vladimir Putin, because Donald Trump, I mean, I do not understand. Donald Trump, he thought he was going to bring peace to Ukraine in one day. Good luck with that. He's done a really good job on the 20-point plan in Gaza. At the very least, Israel's got their hostages back. They've got 3 dead bodies still remaining. But let's face it, getting the live people back was the #1 priority for everyone in Israel. And I think for any normal human being. The only killing that is going on right now is being done by Hamas. And everything else is, it's all their fault at the end of the day. But when it comes to Ukraine, he sees it so clearly in Israel and so badly, so literally like he's blinded over Ukraine. He's looking at this point, this 28-point plan. And it's extraordinary, this plan, because basically saying to Ukraine, apparently agreed between Putin and Trump, that basically you can, Ukraine not involved, you basically get a load of territory that you've already conquered in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, but you also get a whole load more, hundreds of miles more, which is crucial sort of fortress areas which protect, central Ukraine. And although you won't get it legally, it won't be recognised by the UN, you get it realistically, and you have to pay rent to Ukraine for it. They'll get control of those people. Well, we know what Russia does to Ukrainian people. It kills the men, it abducts the children, it rapes the women. We know that because they've done it wherever they have conquered. And basically saying to Ukraine, tough, there's nothing you can do about it. This is worse than appeasement. This is full surrender.
It is, and it's very similar to the 2022 Istanbul plan that was rejected by Ukraine when Russia was seen to be in an even stronger position. It's quite clear that Russia is in a much weaker position at the moment, and
so is Ukraine.
Yes, but Ukraine is hurting Russia more than Russia's hurting Ukraine at the moment. And UK Defence Intelligence has assessed how long it would take at the current rates of advance of the Russians to capture that territory that is proposed to be handed over. And it will be another 4 years and 2 million dead or wounded. Putin can't afford that.
He can. He doesn't care.
Well,
he literally does not care about Russian lives, let alone Ukrainian lives.
He can't afford the 4 years where Ukraine is ramping up the number of attacks that are hurting the Russian economy, are bringing the war home to the Russian people, something that Vladimir Putin has tried very hard to protect.
Those young men, exactly, they're way more wounded than dead, but the wounded are coming back, with amputated limbs, with serious injuries, and he can't hide it. It may not be on the TV, but he can't hide the reality.
And it's more than that. It's, Russian industry is beginning to creak because they're cutting workforce back. They haven't got enough people to populate their factories. People are having to queue for fuel. Fuel prices are going through the roof. That's impacting food prices and everything else. That's going through the roof. And the people in Moscow and St. Petersburg, who are the only ones that Putin really cares about, are beginning to question what's going on because their airports are being shut down regularly because
they can't travel anywhere as well. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, the impact. Again, I'm a big fan of, Trump, these secondary tariffs on India. You want to buy Russian oil? That's fine. You're going to be hit by big tariffs, and that actually worked. Again, it just frustrates me because we know that the West could have done a stranglehold on Russian finances and their ability to fund this war, and they haven't. At the end of the day, if Trump says this is Biden's war, Putin's war, it's not my problem, I'm pulling out, I'm not even going to, he's not giving any money to Ukraine, but he's selling weaponry to the Europeans who are then giving it to Ukraine.
And he's not going to stop doing that.
He's not, because he wants the money and he wants the jobs. But we need the Europeans to step up more than they have done. At the end of the day, people, again, just finally, what do you say to the people who go, we just want peace, you're warmongering, why don't you want peace? Isn't that better for everybody?
At the end of the day, this is a decision for the Ukrainian people. So Donald Trump can try and impose something on them. Vladimir Putin's been trying to impose something on them for the last 4 years and has failed. But it's up to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people to accept or reject it. And I suspect they will do what they've done beforehand and reject it. And they will fight on if they didn't get any support from the Americans. What's the point of fighting for the last 3.5 years?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And again, which part of our country would we give up? And whenever I've suggested that, people do actually suggest. London, Liverpool and Norwich have come up quite often as places. That's a joke.
I'll add Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham. You live in Birmingham. A bit harsh. Good luck going back to Birmingham today. Let's talk about the threat here from Vladimir Putin as well. The Defence Secretary John Healey was very serious yesterday, talking about how we've got a Russian ship that has been basically, sailing around Britain and has basically been mapping our cables, our cable network. It's also a ship that's capable of cutting cables, rather crucial for an island nation. And he's basically warned you go into our territorial waters again. There's going to be trouble. The use of a laser to try and blind the pilots who were monitoring. I mean, a hostile act. Is the threat that we're going to take action? Is that good enough?
Well, the spy ship Yantar has been around our waters frequently over the last few years, and not just around British waters, but also around Irish waters. And we have to protect Ireland because they can't protect themselves. But this is the first time that the Secretary of State or anyone's come out and said that a directed energy weapon, which is what a laser is, has been fired at one of our...
It's not a toy.
It's not a toy. Has been aimed at one of our maritime patrol aircraft, our Poseidon P8 aircraft that fly out of RAF Lossiemouth in the north of Scotland. Now, our Poseidons are armed with torpedoes, and therefore, if you've got a directed energy weapon fired at a military aircraft from a military ship, a spy ship, then the pilot of that aircraft is well within his rights to warn it, and if it happens again, then drop a torpedo on it.
But if they are in international waters, they're crossed in and out, that's that 12-mile...
Yeah, there's a 12-mile limit. They stay outside the territorial limit, so they're in international waters. But again, if you've got something that is firing on a military aircraft, a military ship firing on a military aircraft, and a laser is a weapon, then the
you should
aircraft
expect the response.
It's perfectly within its rights and international law to defend itself.
And here we are once again, Putin quite literally testing the waters.
Yeah, he is.
And again, with the drones flying over airports and things in the Baltic states, and again, just testing the waters, and we must not fail that test.
Correct.
I have a feeling we will.
Yeah, well, I think we will.
Because we're just so terrible. I think John Healey talks the talk, and he's got a very good sombre tone and things, but I don't think ultimately this is going to be a decision for him. It's going to be a decision for Keir Starmer. I think Keir Starmer is a lily-livered human rights lawyer who does not really understand that you have to not just talk strong, you have to act strong.
100%. John Healey had some very strong ideas for how to sort the Minister of Defence out before Labour came into power. I sat down and talked to him about some of these. None of what he talked about, none of his ideas have been implemented because everything is controlled by Number 10.
Exactly, as it is on everything. Let's talk about things that always end up on Number 10's doorstep. Nearly 500 migrants a day. I know, it's just mind-blowing, are signing up for benefits. It's claimed by foreign nationals have hit a record high. Last month, 472 migrants a day began claiming universal credit. The overall number of foreign nationals receiving it's risen to 1.3 million. It's a rise of 6.7% in just a year. This comes, of course, after the Home Secretary Shahbana Mahmood has said that she's going to be announcing new laws today making migrants' rights to settle in the UK dependent on not claiming benefits. This just puts paid to this abject nonsense we've had for years. That migration, legal migration to this country is an economic benefit, not if people are on minimum wage or on benefits. It's not. And again, this would be an awful lot of people who've come here, who've worked, maybe on low wages, maybe they've done the work the Britons won't do. Well, that's because the wages are too low, and then and our benefits are too high. There you are. You can solve that one, guys. And then you. And then after a few years, they get settled status, and then they can claim benefits. Now, a lot of those people will be EU citizens, and there was just that deal to get the Brexit deal over the line, right? British citizens in Europe will be able to claim benefits there, and your citizens will be able to claim benefits here. But I mean, it's just not going to fly with the British public anymore.
It doesn't, and I think anyone who is not a British national, there should be a net benefit score done every year, and that should be integration to society, contributing financially, and all the rest of it. And you have to get above a certain level every year to be allowed to stay.
Well, so you'll say even Shahbana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, say it'd be every 2.5 years. Not that, by the way, we have the staff to do these assessments every 2.5 years of people and reassess their right to stay in the country. This is particularly for people claiming a sort of asylum status. But again, it's just like this idea that we just have all these people. Everyone says, "Oh, we've got a population crisis, not got enough kids." Yeah, but let's import a load of people from abroad who don't necessarily share our values, who on low incomes, often working. Mum doesn't work, dad works part time on benefits, having more kids. Yeah, let's scrap the the 2-child benefit cap on that £3.5 grand, £3.5 grand a year extra the Labour are going to let families have for each child that they're already not able to support. we are just in insane territory. The idea that this is going to solve all our economic problems. I mean, these people are mad.
They don't understand. This is taking money away from where money should be spent. And if you're a refugee or an asylum seeker or someone that's here because been brought in to add benefit to the country, once you stop giving that benefit, you shouldn't be allowed to stay.
Yep.
Sorry.
But then there are an awful lot of people, the BBC types, the Lib Dems and things, who are sort of, these people have a right to stay. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. You see, when you say we're going to send them home, that's because it's home.
Yeah.
I could live my entire life in America or in Bangladesh, but it wouldn't be my home unless I had legally become a citizen of that country, or if I, or if I was born there. No, that's just not how the world works. This debate is always completely skewed by the fact that so many people who are arguing this in the public domain, every NGO, every charity, most government ministers in most parties so far, the lawyers, the media are all signed up to this idea that they don't really think that borders are a thing. Apart from Ukraine, on that side, they're okay. But they don't really think the borders are a good thing at all, or a thing at all. And that people really should, there's no such thing as an illegal, and people should really be allowed to live wherever they want to live. And they just don't get it.
I think they'd have a different view if you just went and kicked their front door down and said, I'm taking over your lounge today. By the way, you can only have your kitchen on Fridays. But these are the same people that will turn around and say, whenever cries go out saying we're giving free this and free that out, to the government, to people, that they'll go, free, it's brilliant, you're getting it for free. No, you're not.
Free NHS.
We're paying for it. Yeah, exactly.
I really think we want an absolute rule that no government minister is allowed to talk about free school
anything.
Meals, free childcare, free NHS. No, taxpayer funded.
Yeah.
Taxpayer funded.
Yeah.
That's so free at the point of your demand or need. Taxpayer funded. Someone has to pay for this stuff, and it's us. I also want to ask you, in relation, actually, it relates to this in terms of what people just expect out of life. Times report today. This is the headline: half of parents regularly let their children off school if they're too upset. Now, I know, seriously, there's our economic decline. There is the end of the Britain that we know in one sentence. Survey on absenteeism. It says, a significant minority of parents have allowed absence for something as routine as getting a haircut. Yeah, because hairdressers aren't open after 4 o'clock, are they? Half of parents regularly allow their child a day off school if they just don't feel up to it. If they have an emotional absence, this is half of parents regularly let their child have an emotional absence. 26%, so a quarter, had permitted it once or twice. An average for 6 days off a school a year. That's one every half term are taken for mental health reasons among families that allow it. Seriously. And then they wonder why their kid can't cope at uni or in an apprenticeship, can't cope at work, or why our economy is in the doldrums. I mean, I'm sorry. The only time I genuinely, in the whole of primary school, I think my child had 5 days off that entire time, and on 2 of those occasions I had to ban her from going to school. It's like, no, you're too ill, you can't go to school. But I don't want to miss that. I know you need to stay home. And apart from that, COVID, when she wasn't legally allowed in school. But it's just madness.
It's complete madness. I'm coming round to the belief that we need to start licensing people before they're allowed to become parents.
I mean, having a kid or having a dog, licence.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, though.
But and the trouble is, and we're seeing this through society. These children will grow up thinking that that's normal, and therefore, whenever they become parents, they'll go, "Well, I'll do the same, but I'll do a little bit more."
But not just parenting, in terms of their life, saying to their employer. I mean, genuinely, I've had employers say to me, they have people who say, "Oh, it's a bit wet today. I'm not feeling very
well, so I'm not coming in." Sorry, you're then not employed.
That's just that's just not how life works.
I know what my mother would have done if I'd suggested that.
Well, again, I'm a doctor's daughter. We were never allowed time off. Have a couple of paracetamol, off you go. Oh, my head's hanging off. Never mind.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, there's a band-aid there. We'll stick it back on again. Away you go.
I mean, I know. It's just another world. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Generally, on the parenting thing, you know how I feel about this. I'm a 1950s parent. It's worked out all right. That's all I can say. I would say to people, seriously, here's some advice on parenting. Find someone you like, who's got kids you like and who they like, do what they did.
Yes.
And I tell you what, I don't meet any parents who are wishy-washy. Oh, are you all right? Let's have some time off. Or let me do everything for you. Oh, no, I don't want to tell you off. Don't say the word no to your child. I've never met any of those people who like their kids. Those people moan about their kids all the time because their kids are horrible.
Yeah, and most of the kids don't achieve much.
And the kids are miserable because they'd like a parent to be in charge. And you're letting your kid off school because I just don't feel like it today.
Children need boundaries.
You
very
are
clear
the
boundaries.
problem. You are the problem. Seriously, can I have a documentary? Can I have a documentary where I go in with I've never read a childcare book at all, with no skills at all, and I'll sort your kids out. You know, these kids are like, my kid only eats yoghurt. Well, there's no yoghurt in the house. You'll starve. I'll give it 2 days. I'm pretty sure I can sort that out for you. Come on, you know you'd watch that documentary. You know you would watch that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I want to hear your thoughts on Ukraine. Should Ukraine just agree to any peace deal? Just stop the killing? Is that the answer? Trump wants peace. Is that the answer? Get in touch. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:30 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram is still with me. Let's get to your messages and your calls, asking you particularly about Trump's so-called peace plan for Ukraine. It would force Zelensky to give up territory for cash in return for some sort of yet agreed sort of lease agreement. Well, I'd love to know which parts of Britain would just go, oh yeah, you can have Norwich with Putin. Can you just pay a certain amount for it? It's basically going to pave the way for a full Russian annexation. It would actually give Russia more territory, not like freezing where they are now. It would give them more territory than they've actually conquered already. It's quite absurd. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on all the topics we're talking about, whether it's benefits, whether it's an absurd story about parents letting their kids have a day off because I just don't feel like it. Please call in and back me up. Or if you are a parent who does that, or maybe you're a pupil right now and your mum and dad will let you off school for the day because I was having an emotional rest day. I'd love to hear from you. Do give us a call. I'll put you right. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. John's got in touch saying Ukrainians would have been better off off to have taken the offer that Boris Johnson told him to take years ago. He didn't tell him to take that. This is just internet conspiracy stuff. It didn't happen. I promise you, if you look up the stats, all the information on it, it didn't happen. Dave says, let the Ukrainian people decide. It's their bloody country. Quite right, Dave. Edmund says, mad Vlad is coming for us next, just you wait. And Julian says, if a Russian plane, ship or spy enters our country, then we must get rid. Putin only knows strength. Ain't that the truth? Sounds good, says Percy. Just get the deal done, says Jeff. Brilliant idea, says Mark. And Samantha says, I think rather more wisely than Percy, Jeff and Mark, invaded land is never for sale. Thank you indeed for that. Let's go to your calls. And Jason is on the line in Wiltshire. Hello again, Jason. We'd be speaking too often these days. Jason, you want to talk about benefits, which we were just discussing. 500 migrants a day signing up for benefits?
It was kind of. Anyway, good morning, Julia,
Morning.
first of all. No, basically, it was the two-child benefit.
Two-child benefit cap. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. This thing really does grip me, and I'll tell you why. Me and my wife, we're a good, hard-working family. You know, we pay our taxes. She's got a good job. I've got my own little business.
Yeah.
We couldn't have children. It didn't work. So we went through 3 years of IVF treatment.
Yeah.
It still didn't work.
I'm so sorry.
But there was no subsidies or anything to help me, you know, us. We could more than support a child. We could, you know, do whatever. We got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously it cost a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there, mate. I've been there.
Well, your mum would probably even know the bloke up at Peas Down it's done it. But that's another story. But anyway, now then what you get is the Vicky Pollards of the world. It can bang them out like rats. And if they lift this cap, obviously the dross, they're just going to live off of, you know what I mean? We'll just bang them out because we're going to get paid for them. And I just think it's so wrong. And it really grits my, if you know what I mean.
No, but exactly. Other people having to pay. And again, there are lots of paid parents who have been able to have kids but would love to have a second child or a third child. And they can't afford it because they are paying more tax than they should do because they're paying for people who don't work to support their own kids.
Yeah, but it's just the fact, obviously, like you said, you've got the ones that don't work. And like you said, if they lift this benefit cap on the children, on the kids, like you said, the TVs are going to be going off on the council houses now, aren't they, on the social estates? You know what they're going to be up to. Yeah,
and again, there's all these, all the hand wringers always like go, oh no, people aren't like that. Having kids costs money. Yeah, having kids costs money if you're a good parent, but if you really aren't a good parent, actually, no, you make money on them. That's the reality. Jason, thank you for that. I really appreciate that call. 10:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Trevor Kavanagh, get his thoughts on all the big stories of the day, including trans people being banned from single-sex spaces based on how they look. And Andy Burnham today not ruling out a leadership challenge to Keir Starmer. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram with me. We'll get his thoughts on what our next guest has to say. He's Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, and joins us to talk about all things political. Good morning to you, Trevor.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, we've obviously got lots of good stuff going on internationally at the moment, but I mean, in terms of at home, massive big conversations about asylum and about migrants. And the conversation today about legal migrants, people here perfectly legal, many of them EU citizens who've continued to live here since Brexit and every legal right to do so, but nearly 500 migrants a day signing up for benefits, which doesn't make sense given that we've constantly been told that migrants are such a wonderful benefit to the country because they're all working so hard and contributing.
Well, I think the simple answer is that only those who have permanent right to live here should be entitled to benefits at all. We're just too kind to people from the rest of the world, and that's why we've got an international health service and we've got an international welfare system.
Yeah.
And it's costing all the people who are, and perhaps some of them themselves are in need of welfare, a lot of money in tax to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These are just such huge sums. I mean, we're looking at 1.3 million people, an increase of 6.7 in just a year in terms of foreign nationals receiving money. Now, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has made a lot of announcements about dealing with asylum seekers and deporting people who are here illegally. But she's also saying that migrants' right to settle in the UK will be dependent on not claiming benefits. So a new system of earned settlement and your right to indefinite leave to remain will depend on your ability to support yourself without claiming benefits, paying national insurance, having a clean criminal record, speaking English to a high standard and volunteering in the community and waiting 10 years instead of 5 years. I mean, that sounds all well and good. I think most of us are just amazed that it wasn't already a requirement.
I know, it's a very simple, sensible way of proceeding, and it is surely one of the great magnets to those migrants who want to come here, that they can qualify for quite handsome payouts for them and their family once they've arrived, once they have set foot in this country.
Yeah.
And it beggars belief that it's happening now. And even particularly when you find people who are here illegally still being maintained and housed and fed and given pocket money.
Yeah, it's absolutely extraordinary. And again, a lot of people say, oh, these benefits aren't big benefits. You know, when your rent is being paid, you're getting some of money. If you're coming from an Eastern European country, this is a lot of money compared to what you would be earning in those countries, isn't it? It's the first time I got to speak to you since we've had these big announcements from Shabana Mahmood on deportations and you know, reform, and the Tories saying, oh, you're copying what we want to do. And in fact, if we'd announced a lot of these measures, you know, you'd have decried us as racist. What do you make of what she's announced? And do you think that, A, she actually seriously believes what she wants to do and will actually achieve it? And will it actually make a difference?
Well, I do think she believes it. It's very refreshing to hear someone from the Labour front benches actually enunciating such a policy. Yeah. Do I believe it? Well, I'll believe it when it happens. And that clue will emerge when the boats stop coming across the channel. There's no sign of that flood of people coming in illegally easing in any way. You've got lots of words and alleged actions here and on the French coast to stop these people, but they're not stopping them. You've got a huge multi-billion-pound industry, and as long as they're not stopped before they arrive here, you're not going to stop the incentive of trying to come across.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fundamental issue. It's proof's going to be in the pudding, and I don't think any British people are going to believe anything a politician of any political hue says who doesn't actually achieve it. What do you make of the claim that the French are finally going to get their act together and actually try and stop the boats with more cunning ways of doing it, like, for instance, putting nets into the water to trap the propellers of these super dinghies to stop them from basically leaving French waters? I mean, that would be a good thing, because let's face it, they then remain France's problem, not ours. But do you think they're going to do that enough to get enough boats and stop them from coming?
In a word, no.
Yeah,
we're paying them £500 million already to stand on the
French
on the beach with their hands in their pockets when they could actually hop into the water and use those knives they proved they can use and make them sinkable. Yeah. And there you have a very safe way of dealing with it, because it's in shallow water. There's no risk to life. It's a very simple operation. One quick thrust and that boat will not sail across the channel.
Yeah. It's really
if they did that on a regular basis, the traffic would cease immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone always seems to think, oh, it's an impossible issue. None of this is beyond the wit of man if there is the will to deal with it. Let's also talk about the budget. It was brought up by Kemi Badenoch at PMQs yesterday. Of course, it's less than a week to go now. And we've had, I mean, goodness me, I think I've had more briefings about the budget than I've had about a budget that's actually already happened, a point that Kemi Badenoch was making at PMQs. But she made the very interesting point yesterday, quoting Rachel Reeves at her last budget, although this one, let's face it, is going to be her last budget, but the budget she delivered last autumn, where she said that freezing tax thresholds and continuing to do so, which the Tories had already pledged to do, would hurt working people. And yet that is something that everybody expects her to do next week. What do you make of that? Well, really a clear breach of what she said last year, admitting it would hurt working people. And let's face it, it is a breach of manifesto commitments not to raise taxes on working people.
It is. It's doing it by stealth. In fact, it's a form of theft by not actually making it clear to those people who are paying tax that they're all now in the higher rate of tax. I mean,
and people doing ordinary jobs, they're not the bank manager, you know.
No, anyone over a fairly small wage, say 30,000, is now threatened with the possibility those thresholds will take them into the higher bracket. So the higher bracket was meant to be on genuinely large earners, people who perhaps could afford to pay a little more. And the broad shoulders now spread right across the country.
Yeah, I know. It is extraordinary how wide it is. And what do you make of where we are with Keir Starmer? Andy Burnham today, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, has in an interview, he doesn't have to go on radio today, but chose to, after Clive Lewis, a Labour MP, one would say a usual suspect lefty, said that he would be willing to, in theory, if the national executive body of the Labour Party would allow him to sort of basically hand his candidacy for his seat over to Andy Burnham, he would give up his own seat to Andy Burnham. But Burnham has basically not ruled out a leadership challenge. We've got, Angela Rayner, former Deputy Prime Minister, on manoeuvres. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, lots of talk of the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. I mean, you name it, everybody seems to think they've got their chances. Lucy Powell, the new Deputy Prime Minister, or new Deputy Leader at least. Do you think that Keir Starmer's job is safe till Christmas, till next May, until, the next election? Because no one seems to think that.
Well, I think you just listed so many candidates who would love to throw their hat in the rings, and probably effectively already have. But that's probably Keir Starmer's safest position, because the Labour Party cannot settle on one alternative. Wes Streeting looks like the most sensible, safe alternative, but he's not getting unanimous backing.
But also the Labour Party members have got him on about 4%.
I know, and the horrible thought is that those same Labour Party members would go for Ed Miliband, who I think in terms of politics alone is lunatic. I mean, what he's doing is deindustrialising Britain with his energy policies and net zero.
We're talking about that up next, indeed. I have to say, it would be, Britain would be completely collapsed in 2 weeks, but Trevor, it would be a really fun 2 weeks to watch.
If you can call that fun, it's a bit like jumping off a bungee jump without the rubber band, wouldn't it?
But
I think
it is extraordinary.
The original point, though, is Keir Starmer safe? I think he's safe until someone gets their act together and actually launches the challenge. They're desperate to get rid of him, and they're desperate to replace him with someone who might raise them off the floor.
But the trouble is, they want someone to the left of Keir Starmer on the basis that Keir Starmer ran on a leftist ticket back in 2020, and now he's sort of so-called, they think he's too much of a Blairite. But actually, the public want him to be more right-wing, i.e. centre ground, because which is where the public are. The public are just centre ground. But the Labour Party MPs and the Labour Party membership want him to go further to the left. They want more benefits, more spending, more borrowing, more high taxes on the wealthy, who will then leave, and then we need more borrowing. I mean, what they want is not what the public wants.
No, I mean, where does Keir Starmer stand on any of those issues you just listed? And nobody knows, including Keir Starmer. So the problem is that you have the general public, which is reflecting its view in those opinion polls, wanting action that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party simply will not take on the economy, on immigration, on law and order, you name it, on education, on almost everything. That's why they're flat on their backs in the opinion polls. in order to win themselves a chance of re-election, they have to do virtually a total somersault and start representing the voters who might then begin to turn to Labour. And they're not going to do it, no matter who takes over from Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Can I just ask you finally about Keir Starmer, who's penned an open letter to his son to mark International Men's Day yesterday. Very private, you know, a letter to my son. Feels like only yesterday we brought you home and you've grown into a confident, kind person, wonderful young man. But it's talking about how it's not easy to grow up in this day and age, the pressures that young men are facing and questions about mental health, masculinity, social media and the like. I mean, is it a good idea for a Prime Minister to do that? I mean, he always talks about wanting his privacy. I'm a big fan of giving privacy to politicians' family members. I mean, I don't know why people feel the urge to bring their wife or their husband to work, you know, for party conferences and the like. But, I mean, is it a good idea for him to be, you know, putting his family in the front line like this?
Well, you have to ask how his son feels about all this mawkish bulldust. I mean, the problem is that we don't know his son. He's kept very carefully, he kept all his family out of the limelight. We've never really seen a photograph of his son that I can remember.
Which is good, I think, to protect him.
Yes, but you can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
Either you keep them out of the limelight or you don't write silly letters like this, which, you know, this really sums Keir Starmer up. He has a deaf ear. He's got a cloth ear towards his public image. He doesn't come across... The universal view of Keir Starmer is that he's a dull, plodding politician who, in fact, you put in politician in inverted commas.
Yeah, he's an empty suit.
He's an empty suit,
Very
exactly.
expensive, donated empty suit from Lord Alley. Trevor Kavanagh, always so good to get your analysis. Former political editor of The Sun, thank you so much. Philip Ingram, would you like to respond to any of that? Very much not an empty suit.
There's so much in that. You know, Shabana Mahmood is making all the right noises at the moment, but I do remember she was the first signatory on a letter trying to stop the Tories from getting illegal migrants out on flights. So she's done 180 degrees and you know, seems to be living it. So whether she's going to be able to survive this or not, I don't know.
Talking tough ain't going to work for people anymore. You've got to do it.
And with Keir Starmer, his open letter to his son, as soon as you start bringing your children into this, that shows that he knows he's on his way out.
Yeah.
This is desperation.
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
And it's cringeworthy when you see the video.
It is quite cringe.
It is really cringeworthy.
10:49 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 8344 499 1000. Up next, as I just mentioned with Trevor, we are going to be talking about Ed Miliband's plan to basically de-industrialise us and plunge us back to the pre-industrial age. Well, he'll call it his energy plan, but it's the same thing. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 10:52 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thanks for joining me. Right now, let's talk about the latest plan to plunge us back into the pre-industrial age from Ed Miliband. He calls himself the Energy Secretary. Of course, he is the ruining Britain's economy, one solar panel or wind turbine at a time secretary. But he's got a new clean power plan, which apparently, according to research, you know, people who look at facts, is going to add more than £150 to our annual electricity bills by 2030. Let's talk about this with Andy Mayer. He's an energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Morning.
Morning, Julia.
So what is this? Just explain, before we pull it apart, what is this actual plan?
Well, I think it's really important to recognise that it's really the same plan that he's been pushing for some time, which is to decarbonise the grid. And that's what he means by clean power. So less fossil fuels providing our electricity and more renewables and nuclear. And half of that looks quite interesting, which is the nuclear bit. And that came into an announcement in the last week or so with Rolls-Royce projects being announced in Wales, and that could be good.
And we're in favour. We need more nuclear, whether it's the mini reactors or whatever. We need to be building more nuclear. End of. I mean, that's, you know, even just to replace what we've got, we desperately need to do it and sharpish, don't we? Where does it fall down?
Okay.
No?
So,
you don't agree with that? Tell me why.
Yeah. So what's really important in energy debates is not to get wedded to any technologies, and not fossil fuels, not renewables, not nuclear. In every single case, the message that's coming from the market and from the independent report that you cited earlier on is that you need to look at the cost, and are these the best choices?
Yeah.
So nuclear may be brilliant, but only if Ed Miliband does more to reduce the policy costs of nuclear. So we need to get down the cost of planning, the cost of permitting, and encourage people to come into the country with lots of different technologies, not just picking one winner who then becomes
because the market's really good at this in a way that governments aren't. So why are our home electricity bills? We've got a clean power plan. Why are our electricity bills going up? Because didn't they say at the last election very, very clearly, Ed Miliband and Keir Starmer both categorically saying it, that our energy bills would be down by £300, and I believe they've gone up by £300.
Yeah, so nobody is supporting Ed Miliband in this claim. And it's even unclear if the government is supporting him, because they keep dropping it from their announcements.
Ed Miliband probably doesn't support himself.
Well, yeah, it's just not very clever politics to claim something that people can transparently see is untrue. What's really interesting about these latest reports from Cornwall Energy and Ben James, who's an energy analyst for Axel Energy, is they are impeccably pro-decarbonisation. They are on the same side of the debate.
They can't be decried as climate deniers or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, I don't know any climate deniers. I mean,
there is a climate, you're not denying it.
Yeah, yeah. So there are plenty of people who are sceptical about the pace of climate change and the solutions people are suggesting to it. But there are very few people who deny man-made climate change is the real problem. Anyway, so on what's been said, what they're trying to get at is Ed needs to think harder about how he can reduce these costs. So some of them are pushing battery technology, which may or may not be a solution. Some of them are pushing renewables, and some of them are pushing nuclear. Fine. But what they all agree on is that there are unnecessary costs being put on bills.
Yeah.
So in order to deal with what are already high bills, Ed is adding various redistribution schemes. So he's trying to take the cost off industry that's going to be shut down, as we saw with the Exxon closure of a chemical plastics plant this week. He's trying to move that onto everybody else's bills. He's trying to improve support for those who are vulnerable. So he's trying to increase the warm homes discount. And that's no substitute for simply aiming to get affordable energy.
Yeah.
And that's what he's not doing.
You wouldn't have to subsidise anyone's energy if our energy was affordable and plentiful and didn't have to be rationed. I mean, that's the key thing, isn't it? And we're constantly told, like, there's this will help, we're going to get more of this clean energy onto the grid and that will help. But then each time everything is subsidised to do that, and of course always has to have its clean energy, unless it's nuclear, it has to be backed up with nuclear or gas, and therefore we end up paying twice, and it always ends up being more expensive. And this is the thing I don't understand, is we've got a government that is totally intent on pushing, modern technology, AI, the future of the, we had an AI summit, didn't we, hosted by the Prime Minister earlier this year. AI is the future. Everyone says AI is the future. The one thing AI needs is cheap, plentiful, reliable energy, and that's the one thing we're not going to give.
Yes, what's beautiful about the research that's just come out is that the company behind it, where this analyst works, is an AI company. So they're trying to sell AI solutions to managing distributed battery technology problems. And that will require energy to run it. So it's this huge circular problem that keeps getting worse and worse, because we're living in this Ed Miliband fantasy universe where the only thing that matters is our net zero targets, not security of supply and not the affordability of energy.
Just very briefly, do you reckon, I've always said these net zero targets don't survive contact with reality, and that's reality by its use. We can see the British public are going, yeah, no thanks, we're done with this now. We've seen Reform lead the way on this. The Tories under Kemi Badenoch, they basically dropped the net zero nonsense as well. I mean, I know the Greens aren't, and the Lib Dems, they don't think it goes far enough, but the reality is Labour can't survive pushing net zero policies. Do you think they're going to end up dropping them?
Well, I think the trend is towards a different approach. Whether Labour arrive at the same conclusion that Reform and the Tories have arrived at sooner, I don't know. I think it's a very difficult political move for Keir Starmer to make when he's already weak. So we'll see.
Yeah, but they'll just keep pushing everything back, won't they? And then it becomes meaningless.
Well, yeah, that's no solution. I mean, there is a movement within Labour to get the government to recognise that other things matter. Jobs matter, growth matters, keeping the North Sea open matters.
Being able to hit your home in freezing cold weather like today, Well, we'll see if they get to the reality check. Andy Mayer, great to hear from you, energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Ingram, I mean, that's the reality. On a cold day like this, people worrying about putting their heating on, businesses can't function, they're moving abroad. I mean, the economy and society doesn't function if we haven't got 21st century cheap, affordable electricity and gas.
Yeah, and Ed Milliwatt, the Disenergy Secretary just hasn't got a clue. He uses more energy than he creates.
I think he's properly stark staring lunatic on this issue. I mean, absolutely hysterical on this issue. And the reality is, again, people are not willing to play. And exactly. you cannot have economic success. You cannot have AI. You cannot achieve those things and bring down the cost of living if you are pushing net zero. Net zero is incompatible with virtually every other aim the government claims they have.
And he's squandering billions of pounds of our taxpayers' money.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Our money, not free, it's our money. So much more coming up, lots more to talk about, including how we're actually going to prevent trans people from using the wrong bathroom, and also that Epstein bill being signed into law by Donald Trump. But what are we actually going to see in those files? We'll try and find out. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome to the show. Very much appreciate you joining me. 3 minutes past 11 o'clock is the time. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it's lovely to have you join us. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Ingram is also here, former senior military intelligence officer. He's joining us for the whole show. Don't forget, if you miss anything of the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe so you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about Ukraine and the extraordinary 28-point plan that the American President Donald Trump has basically, we're told, secretly signed with Vladimir Putin. Small matter, though. It does actually involve the Ukrainian people and their President Volodymyr Zelensky to sign up to it. And basically, it gives away territory that the Russians have already conquered in the east of the country and territory they haven't conquered. I kid you not, to the Russians. It's not a peace plan, it's a surrender plan. It's absolutely extraordinary. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Plus also the nearly 500 migrants a day signing up for benefits, as claims by foreign nationals have hit a record high. 1.3 million people who've come here from abroad. Many of them will be EU citizens with the right to remain here, but claiming benefits. Well, if they're supposed to be a benefit to us, why are we paying benefits to them? Plus, we're going to be talking about why trans people could be banned from single-sex spaces, toilets, changing rooms, prisons, sport. You like it? That's where they're going to be banned from, based on what they look like. That is according to new guidance from the Equalities Watchdog. But it hasn't been published yet because apparently the government wants to avoid a potential political backlash. Who from? People who don't understand biological reality? So that's all coming up. Plenty more besides. We're also going to be talking about the Epstein files. Donald Trump has signed a bill approving the release of those files in the next 30 days after Senate and the House of Representatives approve. But what are we actually going to learn? Well, we'll try and find out later in this hour. Lots more coming up. Just some breaking news for you, actually, if you just heard in the news that a dangerous sexual predator, the former Metropolitan Police Officer David Carrick, has just received a sentence, being jailed for life with a minimum term of 30 years at the Old Bailey after being convicted of molesting a 12-year-old girl. But he's received, this is an additional life sentence. He's now got 37 life sentences. He's already been serving 36 life sentences with a minimum of 32 years after admitting 71 offences of sexual violence committed over a 17-year period. The latest sentences relate to his molesting of a 12-year-old girl and the raping of a former partner as well. Just extraordinary, this man. Thank God he's off the streets. Thank God he's no longer a Metropolitan Police Officer. Anyway, joining me, as I say, for all the chat today is Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning once again to you. Asking audience to get in touch on whatever. Let's face it, you get to decide what you want to get in touch on, but I'm particularly interested in the Trump peace plan for Ukraine, but also where we are in terms of migrants claiming benefits. I mean, it's bad enough, the illegal migrants who we got here, we can't deport, we're paying for them, and now we're paying for 1.3 million people who've come here from abroad who are claiming benefits. I mean, even if they're here legally, I just don't understand the idea that I would go to another country and just claim benefits there. And we're not talking about people who've, worked here for 30 years or something, most of them. Oh, who are we kidding? If migration is supposed to be such a big benefit to us, these people would be top-rate taxpayers, not needing help with their house, their rent and and paying, being paid universal credit. It's just extraordinary. So we're going to be talking about all of that, but I want to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text us on 08722. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. Philip, let's go back to Putin though, and this 28-point peace plan. The 20-point peace plan for Gaza, that was pretty good stuff. Yep. I mean, Hamas have rejected it, but they've had released all the live hostages, almost all of the dead hostages from Israel. They're not going to disarm. Who are we kidding? Now it's up to Arab countries. Oh, well, off you go. You go in and deal with them rather than leaving the IDF to do your dirty work for you. But Donald Trump was on point when it came to Israel. Yep. Ukraine, he has a blind spot with Vladimir Putin that is just extraordinary. Not only is he saying that Vladimir Putin, according to this plan, could keep all the territories already annexed, stolen, invaded and stolen, murdered the men, raped the women, abducted the children. You know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children abducted abroad to Russia. Devastated the landscape. He's saying you can have more territory than that, territory which is really crucial for protecting the rest of the country. Basically saying, off you go, Putin, have a bit of a break, you know, rearm yourself, and then you can go and take the rest of Ukraine. That's basically what he's saying.
Well, and it's including, you know, the Ukrainian military being cut and them not being given certain weapons and all the rest of it. This is back to the 2022 Istanbul plan that was proposed that Ukraine rejected. Russia was in a stronger position then. But I find it very interesting that Keith Kellogg, who is Donald Trump's representative to Ukraine,
very pro-Ukraine,
has decided to leave his post in January.
He's obviously just horrified by this.
He clearly is horrified. And Steve Witkoff, who's been negotiating it, just hasn't got a clue. He's been played every time he's gone to Moscow.
He genuinely didn't even know where Crimea was. He thought it was in the Donbass region as opposed to, you know... Yeah,
exactly. And this is why the plan's not going to fly. It's all happening behind closed doors, but at the end of the day, it's President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people that will have the final say.
To actually do this, there would have to be a democratic vote by the Ukrainian people. You're not really going to fight for 3.5 years, are you? You know, so many men have been lost and wounded. The devastating bombing of civilian targets. Oh, we don't get marches about that every other Saturday, do we? Ukrainian men, women and children who are innocent doesn't seem to matter. But the devastation of that country, you're not going to go, oh yeah, fair enough. Not only can you keep what you've already got, not only do you, we're going to hand over hundreds of thousands of other Ukrainian men, women and children to Russian forces that they haven't even been able to win by force.
Yeah, and people will say, you know, any price is worth stopping the killing. It's not stopping the killing. It's not going to stop the killing. It's going to delay it so that those people who are sitting there shouting about it, their kids are the ones that are going to suffer in the future.
Yeah, so he took Crimea in 2014.
2014.
And then he came back and then no one did anything. There was a bit of waggy fingery and then no one did anything, and then he came back in 2022. Lots of people were saying, oh, Kyiv would fall. Well, it didn't. I mean, let's face it, we were covering that every minute of every hour of every day. It was an extraordinary fight back by some incredibly brave people, an amazing leader in Zelensky. And again, I've not drunk the Kool-Aid on this. I don't think Ukraine's perfect. I don't think Zelensky is perfect. It's a democratic national state for all its failings, and yes, it's very corrupt. All former Soviet states are corrupt. You don't function. If you lived in one of those former Soviet states, you would be corrupt, otherwise your family wouldn't eat. That's how life works in those countries.
Like getting free suits and free freebies to concerts.
Corruption
and
here.
No,
exactly.
No
you know, or
countries.
America. Oh, let's Qatar, buy me a new plane. I mean, come on. No, but this is the thing. I mean, it's just, you know, they're doing what they can. We need to stand foursquare behind them. Donald Trump 100%. Says it's not his problem, it's not his war. Fine, don't. As long as you're still willing to, as you say he would be, to make the weapons to sell to the Europeans so we can pass them on. And people who think that we shouldn't be spending our resources and our diplomatic efforts and our money on this, sorry, take all the money out of all the Russian money out of the banks. There's tens and tens of hundreds of billions. Just free that up and we pay for all the arms that way. Sorry.
There's two things behind this. One, Putin knows that he cannot continue with the Ukrainian attacks on his infrastructure and the West affecting his economy. And he knows he's not going to win in the front line. And two, Donald Trump is looking at the MAGA for midterms, and what he wants to do is turn around and say, look, I've tried, the Ukrainians have, and this is
a terrible lie that's been perpetrated by, frankly, bad people on the internet. This whole idea that, you know, we shouldn't, the Ukraine's not a war we need to fight, and
100% it is.
It is, well, absolutely. But again, this is and on the right, there's again people saying, oh, we want peace. No, well, that's like saying we wouldn't have taken Hitler on in 1930. We could have had peace. Oh, you can have peace if you don't fight your bully or your enemy. You can have peace as long as you roll over and say, oh, by all means, abduct my child, rape my wife and torture me. You can have peace anytime you want.
That doesn't bring you peace, because that bully moves on to someone else and does it to someone else.
And who's he going to go for next? Well, let's talk about that ship in our water. Dipping in and out of our waters.
Yeah, the Antar-Russian spy ship. It's been mapping our undersea cables and our undersea pipelines and power cables.
And why are they doing that, Philip, as a former senior military intelligence officer?
Because they want to know how to damage it if they need to.
You don't need to know otherwise, do you?
No, exactly.
And the thing is, we're an island nation, so those cables, what are they used for?
Well, we've got electricity cables connecting islands together. We've got...
And we need those because we've got a mad electricity.
Yeah, exactly. We've got electricity coming from Norway into
Gas
Scotland
as well?
for us. We've got gas cables. We've got, all of the interconnectivity on our internet pipes go through cables. And of course, this is something that the UK has got real experience of, because the first hostile act of the First World War was the British cutting 4 of the 5 cables across the channel. The 5th cable went through the UK and we tapped into it. Oh, the Russians are tapping into it with the Antar. We tapped into it, and that's what allowed us to intercept the Zimmerman telegram that brought the Americans into the First World War. So we know all about cables and their military use. The Russians are sitting looking at what they can do.
And we're told John Healey, the Defence Secretary, was very much talking tough, and he had his Union flags behind him in Downing Street when he gave that press conference 10 o'clock yesterday morning. We've got another statement in the Commons today. We talk about Russia does remain a threat, and we're going to take firm action. What should that action be, given, and we were discussing in the last hour, that one of their actions was just not going in and out of our waters, but and mapping our cabling and being very obvious about it, but also shining those lasers into the pilots' eyes of the RAF pilots. I mean, that is, you said, these aren't toys. This is a hostile act.
Yeah, it's a laser is a directed energy weapon. It can damage or cause permanent damage to the pilots if it hits them in the eyes, and it depends on the type of laser that's fired. But we should ease the rules of engagement, which is the authority for our military pilots to engage with weapons. Warn the Antar once. If it does it again, then sink it.
That's simple.
Yeah, that's simple.
Would that lead to war, or would that be would that be the sort of thing that would actually prevent things escalating?
Yeah,
because
very
the
clear
message would be loud and clear.
There'd
be
stiff letters.
There'd be
exchanged.
stiff letters and expulsions of some diplomats,
yeah,
but the message would be
happen.
clear. Don't mess with us.
Correct.
We are serious.
Yeah,
Except Russia knows we're not serious. They are battle-hardened. They are ruthless. We are not serious. We don't, as we know from that report from the Defence Select Committee this week, we don't have the military. We are not able to defend ourselves or our allies.
Well, we've got a military.
Should we start something we can't finish?
We've got a military that's got a good punch in it. But it's nowhere
Not
near
sustainable.
Nowhere near where it needs to be for where the threat landscape is today.
If, in terms of Russia invading Ukraine, if Russia had invaded us, we'd have been done by now.
Yeah, a lot of people do that comparison, but we are part of an alliance, and therefore we're structured in such a way that we're not going to. Well, I've been part of NATO. I know how it all works. It's not ideal, but actually that alliance would come together in something like that. And
I hope they'd come together for us. I'm not entirely sure that they would come together for the Baltic states, or I think Poland's our best ally on this front. Actually,
yeah, very much so.
The Germans seem to have woken up a bit as well. But there we are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Let's also talk about Epstein. We're going to be talking about it later in this hour as well. Trump has signed that bill after Congress voted to release the Epstein files within 30 days. It could have been done before now. He said he was going to do it. He then didn't do it, made a big deal. There's been a big MAGA fight about this. Marjorie Taylor Greene and him have massively fallen out. I mean, she is a complete nutter, but she's right on this. I mean, nutters are allowed to be right occasionally, are they not? But I mean, it is just weird that he didn't want to publish this. By all accounts, he really did terminate his friendship with Epstein, such that it did exist. Rich billionaires all know each other. They move in circles and eat in restaurants that we don't, go to parties that we don't go to, folks. They all know each other. But I mean, how much do you think we're actually going to learn?
Probably not an awful lot of new stuff, because the sensational stuff has come out. It's created the clickbait.
Is that because it's not there, or is it because, as you were suggesting earlier, it's going to be redacted and just...
I think there's a few shredders have been shredding stuff, and that shredded material has been burnt, and people are checking
long ago
electronically that nothing exists elsewhere, and use.
And who would be doing that?
Well, it's
CIA, FBI, who?
It could be elements of government organisations. However, that would be unconstitutional. But
yeah, they'd never do that.
But they've got a history of doing that sort of thing. So it would be different agencies and trusted people within those different agencies that are doing it, i.e., trusted by people that might be in the files and don't want those details out.
Very interesting.
But there's a lot of money. Private companies could do that. Some of the people that are potentially named, and we've heard Elon Musk's name mentioned with it. He could do this. He doesn't need any government structures if he thought he was in there.
People know how to do that. And we were discussing earlier, there's a lot of very important, very very, 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 very wealthy people who may be implicated. And again, the thing is, again, we must never forget what we really are talking about is young teenage girls being raped,
children
being
being
trafficked
abused
and raped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different to the grooming gangs in that sense. It was just in a posher place. It wasn't above a kebab shop. Yeah. It was on a fancy island. It was the same deed.
Yeah.
It was the same deed. It's just extraordinary, and it always amazes me. And again, the same with the grooming gangs here. Same with paedophiles who target individually. The priests who do it, or other people, teachers. Same as Epstein. And Ghislaine Maxwell. They know who to target.
Yep.
They know to target the children who are vulnerable, the children who've already been victims of neglect or abuse at home, kids in care homes, but just with parents who just aren't doing the right thing, and it's just so evil.
It is evil. It's evil personified, and therefore anyone that is mentioned in it, I'm sorry, including Andrew Windsor, it should be dealt with permanently.
Bye. I mean, again, even never met her. Of course, never met her. Gave her 12 million quid. But again, in 17, if there were sex, I'm not saying there was, Andrew. Although I'm not sure you could really sue me. Really, I don't think your reputation's got anything left to defend. But if you had consensual sex with a 17-year-old, she was the same age as your kids. You're just a disgusting human being. Full stop. End of. And why did you think she wanted to have sex with you? No offence, mate. Some sort of fat, sweaty, or wasn't he?
He does sweat allegedly.
The whole thing. But anyway, let's talk about other stories. Nearly 500 migrants a day signing up for benefits. Now we've got 1.3 million foreign nationals in this country able to get benefits, signing up for universal credit in this country, which you only get if you're on very low income and not in. Well, you can have it if you're in low-paid work, or if you're not working. The amazing thing is most people who sign up for universal credit are in work. Most people who are on universal credit are not in work, because basically it's a benefit that basically says, it's all right, don't bother.
Simple thing with migrants and benefits. Migrants should benefit this country. If they have to take benefits from this country, they should be sent
Here's your ticket.
home.
Off you go.
Bye.
What do you make of Shbana Mahmood, Home Secretary, has been talking again today in media interviews about paying migrants who shouldn't be here to go? And I mean, we've been talking about 500 quid for the Epping section assaulter from the Bell Hotel who was convicted, the Ethiopian, to keep him on the plane and not make a fuss. They've been getting routinely up to £2,000. It's now talk of, I kid you not, like 25 grand.
It's disgusting. It's ridiculous.
Paying people to leave. But by definition, if they're willing to leave for 25 grand, they're saying that where they're going is safe. In which case, strap them in the seat of the plane and take off.
They're lucky we land the aircraft. I'd give them a parachute and just chuck them out. Yeah, there you go.
Your work.
Yeah.
But he's just... I can understand the whole, it is cheaper for us to do it this way than have them carrying on staying fighting. But sometimes it's the principle.
It's the principle,
of the thing.
And that's 25 grand. That is our taxpayers' money that's going to someone who's come into this country illegally. Whilst we have veterans who are living on the street, in the doorways of these migrant hotels because they can't get any accommodation, they're not been given any money, and they're dying because of it. It's disgusting. It's immoral.
It really is. And again, this whole idea, well, how do you get on the planes? I mean, I'll volunteer. I'm not that strong, but I'm willing to go and lift some more weights to try.
Yeah, we've got big burly people,
well,
and you stick a gun in the back of their head.
But again, how is it that the Americans are able to deport people? How is it, the Egyptians, when you had all those lunatics who went to the Egyptian, the Rafah border, the Rafah crossing, how are they able to get rid of people? People will do what they're told.
We put them in handcuffs, we put them in chains, we stack them up, we chuck them in if necessary, and then chuck them out the other end.
I've got no issue, and I've got no issue with doing it myself.
No.
And where are you on the? But we can't deport children. It's like, well, what do you want? My thing is, so what do you want to do? You want to separate them from their families?
Well,
of course they should go with their families.
The children should go with their families, and if we don't deport children here illegally, the criminal gangs will then start to weaponise even more children.
They will literally be buying children to give to people
put on the boats,
claim to be your child. 100%. And we know that they've already done that. We know that they have already done that.
So these do-gooders who go out and think that they know what they're talking about, and they're looking after the human rights of these people. They're not. They're fueling the criminal gangs, and they're creating the problem.
But again, their problem is they start from this idea that all these people are totally legitimate and are desperate.
Well,
they're just not living in the real world.
I think we need another new law that comes in, that everyone who turns around and tries to protest against the deportation of all of these, it's their houses that they should be given refugees to stay in, and it should be mandated. Have a good time.
Hope that works out well for you.
Have 4 families to your 4-bedroom house. There you go.
Exactly. Or you can pay for them.
Yeah.
Seriously, why don't we have a deal, honestly, where it's just like, right, if you agree, if you want loads of people here claiming benefits,
you pay for them.
Living asylum, okay, you sign up. We'll have a list of people. We'll have a website, right?
Personal tax.
You can sign up to it, and you can all pay for it.
Yeah.
Have a great time. But I'd have a funny feeling that if you ask people, they don't want to. So if you're not going to put your money where your mouth is, if you think these people are so desperate, you think we should be doing this wonderful good thing, then do it. We saw with Ukraine. We saw when women and children needed somewhere safe to go, when it looked like that Peter was going to be going straight across the country. We saw how many people opened their doors.
Homes, yes.
It was wonderful. We had a lovely mother and son living in our buildings, some friends of ours who had a flat in a building, and this was tiny little place, and it's really small, but if you want somewhere safe, and they were there for 6 months, and then they moved somewhere else, but they gave up their home for free for 6 months to complete strangers. But the British people are welcoming good, and no, it's not because they're white and the people coming across on the boats from on the channel are largely black. That's not why. It was because they were clearly genuinely in need, and people who were not going to cause trouble in our country.
And boatloads of fighting age men from dubious countries that we can't prove their identities. We don't know what crimes they've committed there and on their way across. Being imported by criminal gangs is just wrong.
It's just not complicated, is it? We mentioned the budget a little bit earlier, talking with Trevor Kavanagh. I want to ask you, I don't know if you've seen this survey. What percentage of Britons think the economy is in a great state under Labour? Because they asked this question, and the answer was zero. Big zero. I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. A shock poll. I don't think it is a shock poll ahead of the budget. 0% of Britons now believe the economy is in a very good state. Only 4% rated economic conditions as fairly good. I mean, who are those people? I mean, that's the same proportion of the public who still have a positive view of as was Prince Andrew. 4 in 100 people in this country, so 1 in 25 people in this country have a positive view. Okay, he fought in the Falklands. Fair play to him. That was a long time ago. I was at school, for goodness sake. That's how long ago that was. I mean, seriously. But this is quite telling. I mean, just basically, no one thinks. 77% thinks the government's doing very badly. Only 1% think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are doing very well. That's including Labour voters. He is done for. She is definitely done for. This is her second budget next week. Yeah. It's her last.
And the statistics that came out yesterday or the day before were inflation was down to 3.6% that they were celebrating, and all the rest of it. Whenever Labour came in, inflation was at 2.3%.
Yep.
Unemployment has gone up since Labour's gone in.
Over 5%.
Exactly. Inflation is...
And they claim about interest rates to come down. Yeah, but you're not in charge of interest rates.
Exactly,
Bank of England's in charge of interest rates.
And they're trying to stimulate the economy. That's the trouble, because the economy
is... higher energy.
Yeah, the economy is dead.
Well, I'd say, this is a government, you'd say, like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. I don't think the left hand knows what the left hand is doing.
It's in a worse state than when Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng had their lettuce moment.
And the cost of our borrowing, and that was apparently a massive big crisis. Now, they were not good at communications and setting the scene, and very arrogant. And I've got a lot of time for Liz Truss, but, I mean, she ballsed it up herself. I'm afraid she got her own self to blame. But it could have been a magnificent thing for boosting our economy, and she messed it up. But I do think we are heading towards a reckoning, and I really, really, really do think it's not just for our politicians, it's for voters. Because I'm sorry, we have been living on the never, never for a very long time. We have collectively been ignoring the envelopes with the red on the top for the last 20 years, and I'm sorry, they've been building up, especially during 2020. And everyone was staying home. Sorry, well, everyone, half the country stayed home while everyone else worked to bring them stuff. But we're going to have to start paying for it all at some point.
Yeah, we are. And the current bunch just haven't got a clue what they're doing. That's the trouble.
Happy Thursday, everybody!
I'm depressed.
11:26 is the time. Let's get to your calls coming up in just a couple of moments. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. After that, we're going to find out what is going on with the Epstein files. We're also going to be talking about how we're going to decide who can and cannot use women's loos and women's changing rooms. Someone's come up with this brilliant wheeze. We'll talk about it up next. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:29 is the time. Let's get to your calls, 0344 499 1000, and whatever you want to talk about. Let's calls coming in about Ukraine and Putin. Stephen is in Manchester. Good morning, what do you want to say?
Oh, good morning, Julia. I would like to say that war is always very bad for the demography of a nation. But when you look at both Ukraine and Russia, they've got extremely low birth rates in the first place prior to war. Secondly, they've got unimaginably large abortion rates. And thirdly, now they're literally wiping each other to extinction.
Losing the young men,
Yeah, and the issue here is that all that you fight for, there'll be nobody left to enjoy it. I mean, as long ago as 1916, David Starr Jordan wrote his book, which I've read, The War and the Breed. How we obliterate the blood of a nation, its identity and its culture, by killing off in droves the young men. So I want to say that Russia and Ukraine, whatever, are literally mad, quite mad, to continue.
Well, no, Ukraine's not mad. I mean, Vladimir, I mean, the people fighting are conscripts largely on both sides, but Ukraine's not mad. They're trying to save their country and their families.
Yeah, but my point is the
damage being done. But you've got to think of the damage. You got. I mean, it's not an insane war for Vladimir Putin. It's a way of shoring himself up, isn't it? You know, you're always at war. You know that you can justify a lot of things you do as a leader, but Ukraine doesn't have a choice in this other than complete surrender.
I mean, one thing that both sides have been guilty of, I've read about on several occasions now, is where troops are captured, the brutality, they're castrating each other.
Well, look, we know certainly brutality on the Russian side. There may well be some incidents of brutality from Ukrainian soldiers. They usually are in war even people fighting a good war. Often there are things that are done on the wrong side. It is a brutal, horrible war, but that doesn't mean they're ending it by surrendering it. Basically, Ukraine is the answer, in my view. Stephen, thank you for that. Very quick response from Philip on that in terms of brutality.
Well, certainly the Russians are being very brutal to the Ukrainian prisoners of war and the Ukrainian civilians that they're capturing.
I know mass rape and torture.
I know, and I've interviewed people who have been to the Ukrainian-owned prisoner of war camps where the Russian soldiers are surprised as to how well they're being treated. You may get
better they'd be treated by the Russians.
You may get some brutality on the front line.
And again, when we see this again with the Israelis, there will be some wrongdoing. There is by British soldiers and every other soldier. There are, when people are in brutal situations, unfortunately, brutal. It doesn't justify it.
It doesn't justify it in any way, shape or form. But generally, the Ukrainians are looking after the Russian soldiers exceptionally well. Most of them don't want to leave.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yes, that's very interesting, isn't it? Let's go to another call. Andrew's in Hertfordshire. Good morning to you, Andrew. How are you?
Good morning, Philip. Cracking show. Really good yesterday with Sharon Davis, by the way, outstanding.
Oh, she's just wonderful. We've got Helen Joyce on next, so you want us to listen to her too.
Brilliant. The bit that's interesting in relation to that was once the High Court ruling came out, what you should have had there was Starmer say, right, it's like this now. Men's changing rooms are for men. If you're a woman, you're in there, you're in the wrong place. Women's changing rooms are for women.
It's not
complicated. If you're a man, you're in the wrong place. Show leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. But he doesn't know what a woman is or a man is anyway. What did you want to say about Putin?
Well, it's the same thing about Putin, and Trump. Starmer needs to show leadership here and tell Trump, no way, no dice. They're just acting like two gangsters on the waterfront. They're carving it all up as if it were the spoils of a gangland dispute.
But that's how we know, that's how Putin views the world, but it's also how Trump does. You know, money talks, power talks.
Yeah, exactly. And what we need to do is say, right, Putin signed a peace agreement.
Have you gone?
Another one.
You cut out for a minute, Andrew. You said Putin signed a peace agreement.
Do it.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. Andrew, my love, I'm going to persevere one more time. We lost you after Putin signed a peace agreement.
Yeah. What?
No, I'm going to have to give up. I'm so sorry, Andrew. That line keeps cutting in and out. I'm so sorry. Didn't get your point. But yeah, I mean, look, I agree with them on the gangster point. 11:35 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we are going to talk to Helen Joyce about, well, it would appear that there is some guidance about, post-Supreme Court on who can use single-sex spaces, particularly those for women. I would suggest it's a mad idea. Just women do that. But also a huge number of parents of children who have been convinced that they are trans have complained to the BBC about their clear pro-trans bias, which they claim has damaged their children. We'll talk to Helen Joyce about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. Well, let's talk trans, as we often do on this station. We'd love not to ever have to talk about it again, but until it's resolved in terms of how it impacts on women's and girls' rights and safety, we're going to carry on. And we're joined now by Helen Joyce. She's the Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters, also of the brilliant book Trans, Gender Identity and the New Battle of Women's Rights. Morning to you, Helen.
Hi, Julia.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. Now, there seems to be quite a big sort of fight back going on. We had Sharon Davies on the show yesterday, basically pushing for, basically moving men who claiming they're women out of women's sport, quite rightly, following that Supreme Court ruling. And I know you were there at the Supreme Court in April. Everyone was celebrating. It's all sorted. We've still got an ongoing issue. But something has emerged in the Times, which is the guidance that we were waiting for from the Equalities Commission in terms of how we should interpret this not change in the law, i.e. that single-sex spaces are based on your biological sex and not what you feel on a Wednesday afternoon. What has this report suggested and what are the implications?
So the EHRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, has a duty to produce statutory guidance that's meant to give you like case studies and examples and answer common questions about the law. They don't write the law. The law is clear. The Supreme Court has said that. And they, to their credit, have said that repeatedly. Don't wait for our guidance. Act in accordance with the law.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had to update their code of practice for service providers. They did that. They had a consultation about it. They sent the final version to Bridget Phillipson, who is the Minister for Women and Equalities, and she has been sitting on it for 3 months with absolutely no sign of when or if she is going to put it before Parliament.
Because everyone's been saying, let's wait for this guidance, but it's there. It's sitting there.
It's sitting there, but anyway, you shouldn't be waiting for it. The law is the law. Like, it's no excuse that there's guidance coming. And anyway,
and the law hasn't changed. The Supreme Court just said, no, it is the case, and it has always been the case that sex-based rights are based on biological sex, not anything else.
Yeah, but what people thought was that it was about your paperwork, and a lot of people thought that they had to do self-ID for inexplicable reasons. So a lot of people did have their policies wrong, and they should immediately act to come in line with the Supreme Court. But also this guidance that Bridget Phillipson is holding on to is only for service providers. It's not for employers, and it's employers who are saying we have to wait for it.
Who do you mean by service providers then?
Oh, people like shops and gyms and council-run swimming pools and things like that. Places where there are changing rooms and toilets and so on, but not employers. They're two different, they have slightly different legal requirements.
Yeah.
And so Bridget Phillipson has this. She hasn't said what she's going to do with it. Anyway, it's been leaked. It's been leaked to the Times. And it does sound, from what we know of it, I haven't seen it, I should be clear, that it is very common sense. That what it's saying is, if somebody that you can see as a man tries to come into the women's, you've every right to challenge them. Use your eyes and ears and your common sense, which is what we always did before all of this madness anyway.
Yeah, well, exactly. We used to challenge them because we knew they were wrong, because men, no right-thinking man is going into a woman's changing room for obvious reasons. He's not, doesn't belong there. Because there had been a talk about, well, what are you going to do? Ask for people to produce their birth certificates or their passports. But the guidance actually apparently points out, well, you can't do that because, of course, these are no longer factual documents, because someone can get a document saying they are a man or a woman when they are the opposite.
But more than that, I mean, we know who's male and who's female. I was trying to think this morning if it had ever been the case in my entire life that I was confused about the sex of someone who was in the same bathroom or toilet as me. Literally not once, and I'm in my 50s. I'm able to tell what sex people are because I have normally functioning eyes and ears. So everybody else can do that too. And in the very, very rare occasion that, for example, a very tall, slim woman with short hair who's wearing a suit gets challenged, she can just turn around and speak, and her voice will make it clear immediately, and the other person will say, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
When a man comes in, we know.
And also, again, if she's not behaving in a way that people feel intimidated by and is worrying, watching people, then people won't be worried anyway. And there may be some men who are living as if they believe they are women, who may be quite petite and feminine by appearance, and again, that's not going to be an issue. I think again, this was always how it was, and it's not an issue. But at the end of the day, if you're a woman, you can use women's bathrooms. If you're a girl, you can use girls' bathrooms, and if you're a man, you can't. And everyone knew that rule beforehand. But you've got the likes, the Eddie Izzards and others who say, oh, well, I'm wearing heels, I'm a girl, and when I'm wearing flat shoes, I'm a boy, which makes me a boy today. That he can choose, and how he's basically shouted at women who've said, you have no right to be in this bathroom. He was breaking the law.
He was breaking the law, but I have to say the little petite ones who pass are as well. They shouldn't come in. Everyone knows their own sex. Everyone knows their own sex, and trans people can be expected to follow the law and the rules like everybody else.
Here's a clue. If you're having to use the word trans, I mean, there's the clue, isn't it? You're either a woman or you're not. It's very simple. I mean, look, we have got a Prime Minister who wasn't entirely sure until the Supreme Court, so I'm not entirely sure that we can trust that. But let's talk about why we've got into a lot of the mess we've got into, and that's because basically so many, not just the NHS, our schools, and much of our media, social service, you name it, have been absolutely infiltrated and taken over by trans activists, Stonewall, mermaids, the lot, fully signed up to it. And we've got a very interesting court case now with hundreds of parents. They're from an organisation called the Bayswater Support Group, representing 650 mothers and fathers of primary school-aged children and teenagers who believe they are trans. And they have accused the BBC of damaging their children with what they call a constant drip feed of one-sided, pro-trans programmes, and they're calling on Ofcom, the broadcast regulator, to launch an investigation into their coverage. And their complaint is that senior BBC managers, including Jonathan Munro, he's the new head of news, interim head, had dismissed their concerns and failed to take them seriously. I mean, this is a very interesting development.
Yes, it is. I'm not sure we're at the court case yet. I think their lawyers have written to Ofcom.
Oh, right.
But I mean, the evidence is absolutely clear. Like, anyone who's been watching has known this for years. The BBC has pumped out propaganda about trans issues aimed at children. It has, for about 10 years now, it has produced material that has uncritically suggested that people have gender identities. There are dozens of genders. You know, it's great to be trans. They've suggested that a boy who isn't allowed to play in girls' sports might consider suicide if he isn't allowed. They tell girls to be kind. They don't talk about the risks. They had loads of cheery articles about puberty blockers, very slow and late to talk about the harms, incredibly one-sided. And the expression the Bayswater parents use, a drip feed, it's exactly that, a drip feed from what is meant to be our trusted broadcaster that we pay for compulsorily through the licence fee. And it has harmed not just the Bayswater parents' children, but all children, because it's all based on stereotypes and it's all lies.
Yeah, I mean, that's it is all lies, and they didn't put two sides to say the two sides of the debate. There's actually only one side of the debate that is fact-based. But again, this wasn't just in, you know, what children are seeing, and we know what they're seeing on YouTube and the like is absolutely horrific. And girls going, I was really miserable and depressed, and then I cut my breasts off, and now I'm happy. I mean, they are literally seeing videos like that, and that's why they're binding their breasts and thinking this is normal. But again, if you're told that being a good person is welcoming of this and it's normalised and seen as an okay or even a positive thing, what a surprise, then that is what happens. But we know the BBC has been doing this on off the scale, industrial scale level, you know, whether it's down to drag queens in everything. A news report about a single mother struggling with her weekly energy bill or food bill, and it's a trans identified man as opposed to a mother. By definition, he couldn't be a mother. Who they've chosen to interview on Women's Hour, supposedly, Women's Hour representing women's rights and safety and concerns. The biggest single threat to women, new threat that comes about is trans rights. You wrote, a groundbreaking book on it, trans. You weren't invited on once. I mean, we know what their bias is.
Yeah, I mean, it's propaganda. Honestly, it is propaganda. I find another word for it. I mean, they invite on men who write books about being women that are just insulting stereotypes.
Yeah.
What it feels like for a girl, one of them called his book. Another one called it A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Penis. They're both invited on and given these patsy interviews where the interviewer just sucks up to them. They didn't get me on to talk about my book.
Nope.
They got Kathleen Stock on because she was fired from the University of Sussex, but not to talk about her book. The bias is just so clear when you look at it. And if the BBC were taking seriously this report that was published about the bias, they would be coming on to us and talking to us now and saying, please come in and talk to us about your concerns. Let us fix this. We haven't heard a thing, Julia.
And it didn't really change that much after the Cass review into what was going on at the Tavistock. And lots of people, apart from the governments and, ministers and others were saying, oh, well, now we know this. There was actually, with all credit to Baroness Cass, there was actually nothing, Professor Cass, there was nothing in it that was new that even me, as not an expert in this field, didn't already know in terms of the studies into what happened with children with puberty blockers and the like. And they don't seem to change their stance when it comes to the Supreme Court ruling in April on biological sex being the only determinant of whether you're a man or a woman.
Well, they're still saying the toilets in their own newsroom are to be used on the basis of self-ID. I mean, until they change that, I don't believe they've changed at all. It's just shocking, Julia. 10 years, it's more than £1 billion a year. It's our money, and they've been harming women and they've been harming children, which is the worst bit about all of it.
Oh, the harming of the children. It's unforgivable. If you're on the side of the people giving drugs to ruin children's bodies and lives and minds and to mutilate their bodies, you're on the wrong side. It's as simple as that. Helen Joyce, you've always been on the right side. Thank you, as always. Really appreciate you coming on the show as well, from Sex Matters, and the author, of course, of Trans. It's a brilliant book. I cannot advise you. If you've got a kid who thinks they're trans, there are no such thing as a trans kid. Seriously, read this book. It will help you. It really will. Philip Ingram, I mean, look, this all just madness, isn't it? I mean, but again, the BBC, they genuinely, if you say to them they're biased in this way, they look at you like you're mad or a bigot.
Yeah, this is a tiny minority that's occupying too much time and taking up too much oxygen.
I want to never talk about it again.
And what really gets me is, we've got doctors who you swear to the Hippocratic Oath that says do no harm, who are mutilating people. They're not treating what is behind someone saying I feel as if I'm in the wrong body. They're treating it with surgery. That has to be wrong.
Oh no! And also, you get told off if you give anything more than Calpol to a kid, but no, give them puberty blockers. That will work out fine. It's just incredible. I'm still blown away that this happened for so long, and I'm so glad we were talking about this. 10 years ago, we really were. 11:49 is the time. Up next, going to talk about what we're going to be talking about quite a lot of in the future, and that's the Epstein files when they are finally published. But what's going to be in them? Well, we'll ask Freddie Gray from The Spectator. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:51 is the time. Well, overnight, Donald Trump did sign the bill to see the Epstein files finally published. He promised to publish them before he was even elected. The MAGA crowd has forced him into it, pretty much against his will. But what are we all waiting for? What are we actually going to learn from them if and when they actually are published? Well, let's talk to the US editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, who joins us now. Morning to you, Freddie.
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. What is in these files that we don't already know?
Well, I don't think anybody really knows because there's so many of them. I mean, there are a lot of people putting it about that there is some photograph of Donald Trump with Epstein and some young girls. Nobody knows if that's true. I think what Trump is saying, and I think he has a fairly good point here, is that this is very similar to Russiagate, the scandal that sort of afflicted and derailed a lot of his first administration. Yeah. Democrats are constantly making quite snide remarks, suggesting that some great bomb is about to drop. But so far, the bomb hasn't exactly dropped on Donald Trump. I think what's definitely true is that they have mishandled this in terms of managing it as a story.
Well, he said you can't say there's a big conspiracy and we're going to publish the Epstein files. And then when you get into office saying nothing to see here.
Yes. And I think what it also ties into, and this is sort of happening in other ways to the Trump administration, is that they're losing their grip on the kind of political dominance that they had in the first 10 months of the Trump administration. And that's why Democrats are getting excited. There are troubling signs in the economy. Trump's getting in trouble with his base for focusing too much on foreign policy. The base are obviously very interested in this Epstein story because it taps into a kind of neuralgic issue for the populist right, which is there's a global elite that do terrible, terrible things, and they get away with it because they're rich and powerful.
And that ties in with all the conspiracy theories about Hillary as well, the Hillary Clinton and QAnon, doesn't it? But I mean, look, we know that there are big names linked to Jeffrey Epstein. He was a very, very sociable, very rich man. He was a billionaire. He had the biggest, his expensive house in Manhattan. He had an island. He flew people around. He was, very generous, giving money to, the Duchess of York and come and stay in my house. The reality is, from some what I've looked into and what I've seen from the documentaries about Jeffrey Epstein, you could not be around him and not know that there were at all times a whole bunch of young teenage, really pubescent girls around, and you must have gone, that's weird. I mean, if I walked into a man's house and he didn't have a teenage daughter, I'd wonder why there were a load of teenage girls in his house, wouldn't you?
I think I probably would, yes.
And then walk straight back out again.
Exactly, of course I would. The extraordinary thing is the birthday book that we've seen, the 50th birthday book that Ghislaine Maxwell lovingly prepared for Epstein. And all the contributions from all these people, and it's a range of people, from family members to very rich businessmen to senior politicians, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, it seems, allegedly.
He denies it, yeah.
Denying it. And the amazing thing about the tone of the book is how sort of glibly they refer to Epstein's predilection for very young women. And it was just sort of thought to be a bit of a joke among them. And of course, that just sounds so odd to us now.
As long as it's not their daughter. And again, a lot of people might say, oh, different times, pre-Me Too and the like. It's like, yeah, I don't remember there was ever a time where we thought it was okay for men, middle-aged men, or anyone over 16 to be trafficking and having sex with, vulnerable girls who were aged 14 or 15. Pretty sure that was always considered a bad thing. But this is the thing, there are so many conspiracy theories around this, about who's going to be, I mean, there's been talk about Bill Gates and that his wife has said, Melinda Gates said, one of the reasons why she broke off their marriage was his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, to which a lot of people may read a lot of things in there. But there's no doubt at all, there are a lot of people who would have known Jeffrey Epstein socially and had photos with him at their clubs, at the parties. Doesn't mean they were involved in any wrongdoing. A lot of people flying on his planes. Clinton, I think, admitted, Bill Clinton, he flew on his plane, but he didn't go to the island. But if you stayed in his house, if you were on his island, I don't know how you could have not known what was going on.
Well, that's it. And I think that the thing that really sickens people about the story is this kind of, for other people it's wrong, but for us, we get away with it. And that's the sort of...
we could do what we want.
In the emails. And yes, and actually, if you look at the emails, a lot of it is talking about media narratives. They're always talking about, Epstein was constantly communicating with senior Democrats or senior anti-Trump figures about how he could offer them something. He could help them.
Yeah.
Because, he can control the story.
Yeah.
He was trying to use it himself for leverage to maybe get himself off the hook and so on. So I think this is what's really sick about this story. And I think that's why it keeps bubbling on, because even though we might not get there, and I think the really fascinating stuff, which is very hard to prove and no one quite knows what it is Epstein's possible links to intelligence agencies.
Well, there've been allegations that, it seems basically the reason, he wasn't blackmailing people and that's how he got away with it. It was actually, the CIA, the accusations was, and also, of course, Mossad. There's always an Israeli link, isn't there? We don't know whether, how much that's a conspiracy theory or not. But certainly some of the CIA claims seem to be not entirely, absurd in nature.
No, I don't think they're entirely absurd. And I think, this is it again where we're probably not going, even with this massive release, we're not going to see all the information because things can be withheld on grounds of national security. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of people think that the Trump administration might set up investigations into things that it can then claim it needs to redact these things on national security. And then the Democrats are going to do what Republicans have been doing them for ages, which is saying, you're not releasing everything, there's more here. Why are you playing fun games with these redactions? And the conspiracy will just bubble on and on and on.
Well, indeed. Philip Ingram, who's a former senior military intelligence officer who's with me in the studio, has pointed out, anything that's actually seriously damaging to anyone very important may already have just disappeared into the ether.
Well, quite. I mean, I think the in terms of just mud flinging, which is what this is going to be, I do think the Democrats might be overstepping the mark somewhat at the moment. I think they're getting very excited about this as a kind of the way to finally bring down Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, also, it's all factored in. He's admitted to grabbing women by the private parts. He's admitted to sexual assault. He's been in a libel trial, basically, found by, a court that they believe, on balance of probabilities, he did sexually assault a woman in a department store. I mean, for goodness sake, this is all priced in.
And can anyone name a Republican figure other than Donald Trump who's been associated with Epstein? It's quite hard to.
Very interesting point. Very much more associated with the Democrats. Well, we'll see. I have a funny feeling there'll be not anything or such a tranche of stuff. We'll be years trying to go through it. Freddie Gray, US editor of The Spectator, thank you very much indeed for that. Philip Ingram, as you were saying earlier, a lot of this stuff disappears. It just does. We'll never know it was redacted.
Exactly. We'll never know it existed unless Ghislaine Maxwell's stuff suddenly hits.
She knows things.
She knows stuff.
She knows things. Well, she's in a very nice soft prison now. Although I'm surprised she's serving time at all, actually, given how much she knows. But who knows how long that will be. Someone might get a pardon at the end of this Trump presidency. Anyway, lots more to come. Coming up, we are going to be talking more about Ukraine and defence, plenty more besides, plus your calls. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for your company. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or your connected device, great to have you on board. If you miss anything from the show, do go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about Ukraine and a secret 28-point peace deal. Well, it's a surrender deal, really, that Vladimir Putin has apparently agreed with Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump's idea, but was it really? Was it really? And how could the Ukrainians possibly agree to it? We'll talk about that with the Shadow Defence Minister, Mark Francois, in just a few moments. We're also going to be talking more about that Russian spy ship. What do we do about that? And also, an inclusive cinema has cancelled the premiere of a free speech documentary because it doesn't align with their values. you're an inclusive cinema, that you don't include free speech. Well, we're going to be talking to the one of the authors of that documentary, the one and only friend of the show, Spiked Online's Tom Slater, about that. And we're also going to be talking about the upcoming publication later this afternoon of a report by the COVID inquiry into the government's response to lockdown. I don't hold out much hope. I think we all know it's going to say we should have locked down sooner. But we will talk about all of that with Ross Clark. That's all coming up. Do get in touch. Love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we're talking about. Lots of you getting in touch about Ukraine. The number to call is 0344 499 1000. Of course, you can call in on anything you want. You get to decide. We'll put you on air. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1. Standard network rate message. Joining me still, I'm delighted to say, it's Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. And just before we go to Mark Francois, I mean, we do just have this extraordinary situation where, you know, we've got a 20-point peace plan that has already started, although Hamas have rejected it for Gaza. But, you know, we've got lots of the world on board, including all the Arab states pretty much, but I think apart from Iran. We've now got a 28-point peace plan for Ukraine. I don't think anyone's going to be on board with it, apart from Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin.
No, there's nothing in it for the Ukrainians, and it's giving a lot away and just setting the conditions to allow Putin to rearm, to reset, and to come back again in an even more dangerous way and kill even more people over a longer period of time in the future.
Because that's what he's going to do. Well, that's it. We just explain to people who don't know. This idea is basically that Russia would get not just all the territory it's already got, so Crimea and the eastern Donbass region, the industrial region, which has been fighting over, you know, the line has moved here and there, but it's been fighting over for the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years now. But also extra territory further west of the Donbass region, closer to Kyiv. Now, this is crucial territory which the Ukrainians have been able to hold all this time, or been able to fight Russia back on. But it's absolutely crucial in terms of the defences for the rest of the country, particularly for the capital, Kyiv. Remember those fears early on that those tanks would just roll straight in? Well, this is the key territory, prevents them doing that. But also saying that Russia will obviously, you know, they're going to keep all the Russian men, women and children, the ones they've been murdering, raping and abducting in the Donbass territory. I'm not quite sure many of those people who are still there would be looking to be staying there. But also, although they wouldn't have legal ownership of that territory of Russia, they would have to pay a sort of a rent, effectively, a lease agreement to the Ukrainians to take that territory, bearing in mind that not only does Zelensky have to agree to this, but also the Ukrainian people. This, under the Ukrainian constitution, would require a referendum by the Ukrainian people who've been fighting all this time to then give up not even just the territory that they've already lost, but more territory. Is Trump in his right mind? Well, let's talk about all of this right now with Mark Francois, his Conservative MP and also Shadow Defence Minister. Very good afternoon to you, Mark.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, I've just given an outline to people of where it is. I mean, this is not a peace plan. This is a surrender plan, isn't it?
There are definite risks here. Within that Donbass region, there are a number of what are called fortress towns, where the Ukrainians hold them and have held them at great cost because they have commanding terrain.
Yeah.
If they had to give those up, then behind them is a lot of sort of open country. So Zelensky, I don't think, will give those towns up. And I think his military will be desperately against doing it. Yeah. So even though the president is trying to push this agreement, I'm not sure that Zelensky will feel that he can sign up for it for very sound military reasons.
Well, indeed. I mean, again, as Philip Ingram and I have been discussing all morning, this isn't a deal just for, like, the Donbass region, not even just a deal for your territory, you know, freezing it as it is and just sort of, you know, for the love of God, let's just stop the mutilation and the death, but actually giving Russia more territory than they've been able to conquer already, but crucially paving the way for Russia to rearm, to you know, send their soldiers back for a break and then start again, battle hardened, and then in a few years' time come back for more, which is undoubtedly what he would do.
I agree with you. And as one example of that, the Russians' most modern tank in main production is a thing called the T-90. And their tank factories are building those tanks in 3 shifts.
Yeah.
But they're not being sent to Ukraine, they're being stockpiled.
Interesting.
And you have to ask the reason why. And if you go to the Baltic states or you go to Poland or you go to Finland, they will tell you why. So in Poland, the official policy of the Polish government is to prepare for war. They'd rather deter it, but to be prepared for war with Russia within 3 years.
Yeah.
And they announced that policy 6 months ago. So basically, the further east you go in NATO, the more clear-eyed people are about it.
Absolutely.
And we've been debating this in the Commons recently, and the Defence Select Committee, so an all-party committee with a Labour chairman, Tan Desai, produced this report just yesterday.
Yeah.
And it basically says that the government are proceeding at a glacial pace, their words,
we're not
in terms
ready.
of our defence preparation.
We said categorically, we are not ready. We're not able to defend ourselves or our allies. I mean, that is
Correct.
a fundamental breach of our NATO agreement, for goodness sake.
Well, yes, the problem is, Julia, the government has said a great deal about new money for defence.
Yeah, it's chicken feed.
Well, most of that money, having looked into the detail, that's my job, most of that money doesn't start to turn up until about 2027, 28.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, so what's going on now, this is very important, is there's actually, in this financial year, a massive cash squeeze, and the governments are trying to make efficiency savings, so in pub English, that's cuts to the armed forces to the tune of £2.5 billion this year. That is utter madness, given everything we just been talking about.
It's not just madness, it's actually dangerous. And it's interesting, actually, one of the points of this 28-point surrender plan from Donald Trump is a requirement for Kyiv to actually reduce the size of their military. I mean, there's a giveaway if ever there was one, but we're going to do it for free for Vladimir Putin. What do you make with this this Russian ship that's been monitoring, a monitoring ship, by the way, capable of cutting cables, that has been monitoring our North Sea cables, and the military planes that have been shadowing it, and a military vessel as well, those military planes having lasers shone into the eyes of their pilots. Clearly a hostile act. We had a very, very serious, very sombre statement from the Defence Secretary John Healey yesterday, saying that action will be taken. We are ready if any of this happens again. But are we ready? Are we basically, basically unable to actually follow up on that threat?
Well, I'm sure we could do something about one ship. And look, we have to understand who we're dealing with here. And I know you do, but just if I may, for your viewers.
Please do.
Vladimir Putin is a former regular colonel in the KGB. This man is not a Boy Scout. He admires strength and despises weakness. And the weaker we look, the further he'll push. And if we don't stop him in Ukraine, we'll have to stop him in the Baltic states. And if we don't stop him there, we'll have to stop him in Poland. And by then, you're right in the middle of something that looks fairly akin to World War III.
Yep.
So history shows the Second World War, appeasement didn't work. The only way that we will end that war in Ukraine is when we stand up to Putin more firmly and threaten to sanction him, particularly his oil and gas exports. That's his financial windpipe. If we can curtail
we shouldn't threaten. We shouldn't threaten. By the way, we should have done this 3 years ago. Everything, the fact that there's even a possibility of any more sanctions haven't been done is absurd. Seize all the money in the European banks. That's what funds the war effort. We don't have to pay a penny as taxpayers. And absolutely, secondary tariffs, not a single penny goes in or out of Russia, end of, full stop. If we'd done it seriously, we could have ended this war and choked him already. But let's face it, we've got weasel politicians across Europe and across America.
Well, I hope you're not talking to one now, but I do think that collectively we have not fully appreciated the scale of the threat. So, what are we talking about? There was an urgent question in Parliament this morning.
Yeah.
My boss, James Cartledge, was pressing MOD ministers on exactly this point. What has happened? A Russian spy ship is being monitored just on the edge of British territorial waters, peacefully, and they have fired a laser at the pilots in the plane. As you said yourself, quite rightly, I called it a hostile act yesterday. You said the same this morning, Julia. That shows what these people are. They're going to push us and push us and push us. Those 20 drones that strayed into Polish airspace a month ago, 1 or 2 could have been an accident. 20 was not. Putin will push us and push us until we push him back.
Well, how do we push it back? Because people will say, oh, we don't want to go to war. We don't want to risk anything to go to war. But that's what he knows. And that's why he pushes the next thing and the next thing. And as we saw, what happened, not just, basically playing games with us, playing cat and mouse with us. But also, even with Crimea, he didn't just sort of suddenly launch a load of tanks into Crimea when he seized Crimea. It was done very carefully, very slowly, plausible deniability. The little green men didn't have Russian insignia on. No, it wasn't happening. He spent years, and he's doing it in the Baltic states right now, pushing more Russian people in, and doing that, just fomenting the trouble. And he's got a playbook, and he knows what he is doing, and we're sitting and watching and going, oh, you shouldn't do that. But at some point, this is like, the playground bully. Someone's going to have to punch him in the nose.
Well, I have hoped that, the scales were falling from President Trump's eyes, if I can put it like that. You've got people like Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, who has a very clear-eyed view of Russia. Yeah. Supposedly, when he and Lavrov had a call a couple of weeks ago, it ended in a row. There are people in Washington who understand the degree of the threat. Now, President Trump, you could argue, has to some degree brought Putin to the table, but he still hasn't gone in to accept a ceasefire. And Putin will keep coming while he thinks he's winning. And he thinks he's winning one village at a time.
But he is winning, because he's got the most powerful man in the world, and the only person who can really, really stop him, has the military might and the will to do it, is basically saying, you can have anything you want.
Look, history shows us, if we go back to the 1930s, and the parallel is apposite, appeasement does not work. At the end of the day, Churchill was right and Chamberlain was wrong. Yep. So we need to be a bit more Churchillian about all this. And hopefully, I know the president, or I've read, is a great fan of Winston Churchill. I would just encourage him to reread his history.
Yeah, he's still got that bust in his in the Oval Office, has he not?
Well, he put it back after Obama got rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's also talk about issues closer to home, and this is SAS soldiers who've threatened Labour with legal action over their Troubles bill. And now this is a letter that's been sent to Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, warning that the new legislation doesn't provide adequate safeguards for veterans. And this is basically a decision by the government to, they've axed plans to implement what would have been a Conservative government plan for the Legacy Act, which basically granted immunity to troops who had served in Northern Ireland. But the new plan is to include a commission to investigate Troubles killings once again, which could lead to more legal action, more criminal trials. Now, we had these ongoing for years now. Often we're talking about veterans who are often, very elderly as well. What do you make of this, and where do you stand on this?
Well, I stand with the veterans. And I've summed up for us against the bill in the House of Commons on Tuesday and made that very plain. And if and when we get the chance, Julia, if their bill has gone through, we will repeal it. Yeah. We brought in it's a complex subject.
It is very
in essence,
complex.
We brought in the Legacy Act in 2023 to try and draw a line under the Troubles after all these years. And what Labour are doing, and they're doing it because of our old friend, the Human Rights Act.
Yay.
What they want to do is to repeal our existing act with their Troubles bill, so their bill gets rid of our act. And what that would do is it reopens what I call the conveyor belt of coronial inquests and civil prosecutions to try and drag our soldiers back into court.
But the extraordinary thing about this is that part of the whole, peace agreement in the peace deal in 1998 was about actually, IRA, vicious, horrible, murderous terrorists basically being let out of prison, people who've been on the run and never served time, serving, 1 year for murders, and then kneecapping and goodness knows what, and then being freed. And the idea was it was supposed to be on both sides. But basically, if you're involved at all in the Republican movement, you get a free pass. But anyone who was a soldier, you're just going to face action after action after action for everything you did.
Yeah, it's two-tier justice. We now know that when, after the Good Friday Agreement, there was a secret deal between Adams and the Blair government to give the so-called on-the-run paramilitaries what were called letters of comfort. This was kept secret. Of course, none of our soldiers ever had such a letter. This all came to light in 2014.
Just say the letters of comfort was basically, look, you won't be prosecuted.
Yeah, it was a get-out-of-jail-free card in pub English, right? And it came to light in 2014 when a man called John Downey, the alleged Hyde Park bomber, was on trial at the Old Bailey. He produced his letter of comfort. The judge rapidly abandoned the trial. So now, ministers say, well, these letters of comfort have no legal value. Well, tell that to the families of the 4 soldiers that were killed. So come right up to date. 9 senior generals, well, 8 senior generals and 1 Air Chief Marshal, wrote a letter to the Times last week saying that this was a very bad idea. Their words, not mine. Labour's proposals were a direct threat to national security. Now, that is very powerful language from senior generals who know the importance of words. And now, moving on from that, the SAS Regimental Association has now sent a pre-action letter to the government saying they intend to take legal action against them if they proceed with the bill. So I suppose the unofficial motto is who sues wins. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. How did we end up in a world where the SAS are suing the government?
Exactly. Again, only last month, a former paratrooper in his 70s, known as Soldier F, we covered it on the show, was cleared of murdering civilians on Bloody Sunday after a judge ruled the evidence against him fell well short. But we've seen case after case, and often people, you know, they're being exonerated, they're found innocent, and then another case is brought.
Correct, and there's another one pending as well for a man called Soldier B. So look, Julia, can I make a suggestion? If your viewers are as enraged by this as I am, rather than shout at the telly, they should get on the internet. They can punch in on the parliamentary website their postcode. It will give them the name and email address of their MP. They should email their MP, particularly if they're a Labour MP, and say, I'm one of your constituents, and up with this I will not put. That is a way that all of your viewers could help to defend the SAS, and I would plead with them to do it.
And we're not talking about, one of the things I've really noticed in the military world, and indeed in the police world, but particularly in the military, when there are people who have committed clear wrongdoing, you know, it's other soldiers absolutely want them to be prosecuted because there are rules of engagement. But we are talking about people going about doing their job and then being prosecuted, you know, decades later. Francois, fascinating to talk. She covered a lot of ground there. Conservative MP, of course, and Shadow Defence Minister. Thank you very much indeed. Itching to get in on all of this. Philip Ingram, MP, former senior military intelligence officer. And look, you're from Northern Ireland as well. So come back specifically on the troubles in Ukraine and your take on that.
Well, I'll give you an example. The SAS, who ambushed and killed 8 terrorists who got out of minivans with automatic machine guns, attacked a police station, having driven a digger through it with a bomb that exploded, flattening the police station. The SAS soldiers who killed all of those terrorists in an ambush are being investigated for that. For criminal investigation. Whereas there is no public inquiry into the deaths of 12 innocent people, and 63 people got injured in the Enniskillen Poppy Day bombing. And you know, that shows where the priorities are.
Who were ordered to go and do their job. To prevent the loss of life, ultimately.
And terrorists who had clearly got out of a van with an intent to kill people because they had automatic weapons in their hands.
It's always a giveaway, that, isn't it?
Exactly.
Always a giveaway.
And there was a big bomb in
there is
an
an argument, isn't there?
beforehand.
And again, it's that argument about, you know, when you're dealing with military, you know, with insignia representing their country, and dealing with terrorists, you know, we hold our our soldiers to a higher standard than the terrorist scum, whichever terrorist scum they were, whether they're Hamas or whether they are the IRA, and yes, they are scum. But we're not talking about someone who has committed a horrific wrongdoing in the course of their work, which has horrified other soldiers, and then that being covered up. We are talking about people going about their job, often being fired on, making decisions. And this comes, it's very, very similar, isn't it, to the police officers who would take on that role, no extra pay as an armed police officer, to go through the training, and then make a split-second decision to either save their own life, their colleagues' lives, or civilians' lives, and they take a life. And then they face a murder investigation for doing their sodding job and keeping us safe. And again, the last few that have come up, I mean, I've said every time, when you shot Mark Duggan, your very other case, literally, I would like to meet you, I want to shake your hand and thank you for keeping us safe.
And you know, if these murdering terrorists were not taken out, they would have killed other people. And the majority they kill are civilians, and the majority they kill are Irish civilians from north and south of the border. And you know, the terrorists that in Loughgall in particular was the organisation that killed most Catholics in Northern Ireland. So people, history's being rewritten, and that's the trouble. Our government is allowing the terror organisations and the political representatives to rewrite history.
Yeah, and again, the fact that basically a free pass has been given to anyone who is involved in the troubles on the other side.
Yeah.
It's basically, as a terrorist, well, we've all moved on, I mean,
it's shocking, and I get.
Don't know why anyone would stay in the military. Genuinely, we wonder why we can't recruit people.
They're leaving.
Why would you?
That's the trouble. They're leaving.
Well, a lot of these, they're elderly men. Imagine, you fought in the troubles. You helped, keep people safe. You did your best, and no one's perfect. Not saying, like every soldier has done the most perfect thing all the time. But again, I'm an armchair general, so I do rather understand that actually sometimes things might happen that aren't perfect because people are in a state of war.
And people will be concerned, and I know I've gone back in my mind over things that have happened in different conflicts to go, was that the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Could there be a possibility of a knock on the door on such and such?
Yeah.
And
you can't live like that.
You can't live like that. It's wrong. It is simply
we just
wrong.
simply cannot keep expecting, and it is largely men, to go and put their lives on the line like that, and then then second guess them from a nice comfy seat in the warmth. 20 or 30 years later.
There were a lot of women who were in the front line in Northern Ireland, especially in covert roles and everything else. So right up, you're further forward than infantry soldiers. Seriously dangerous roles as well.
Very good point. Love to hear your thoughts tonight. If you want to get in touch, 0344 499 1000. I'm going to get your calls up next. This is Talker.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:27 is the time. Let's go to your calls. 0344 499 1000. Your messages, lots of them coming in about defence issues. Let's go to some of the texts quickly first. In terms of that peace plan for Ukraine, which from Trump, which is it's a surrender plan. Oliver says they've lost those territories, they're not winning them back, so why waste more lives? No, Oliver, Trump wants to give more territories that Russia hasn't won, because they will come back for more. Faye says, good, Project Ukraine has failed miserably, and now at least the remains should be saved, except it won't be. Scott says, you can't trust Russia. They've proved time and time again they will wait and strike again. Exactly. Riley says, so millions have died for nothing and you still use your country? Yeah, great offer. David is on the line in Exeter. Hello, David. What do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. Hi,
Hello
Philip.
Hi, David.
I was on the campaign for Dennis Hutchins in 2018-19 and up until the point when he stopped his dialysis and died in court. But in the middle of that, I was the one that broke the story that SAS were being legally pursued in the same fashion as the other frontline soldiers. And originally, when I went to the senior SAS officers on this, Julia, they were gobsmacked because there'd been such a change in government policy with the way that they would be handled.
Yeah.
Now, we are where we are now with this, and I've got to say that with the mustering of the officers and the pre-action letter against the government, this is a statement that I'm going to submit for everyone. The government cannot and will not survive without the support of the Special Air Service. And that's in the context of war, according to Healy yesterday. So this is a situation. I can understand now why Starmer may well be leaving in the new year because of this, because he cannot continue in government without the SAS's support, and he cannot legally pursue these people. Now, I've got to say, with those comfort letters, my postman was one of the lads who was blown up in Hyde Park, and he came into me on the day after the judge let that guy off, literally in tears. So this lawfare situation is not new because I said I've been on this since 2018, 1920, and it's come back round.
And why do you think it comes back round? Because surely you'd think people in government would, they're the ones who see the real state of affairs. They must understand that what this means for our military by sending out that message that we're not going to have your backs.
Well, that's completely correct, Julia. They're not having their back.
But why? Why don't they?
Well, they're not listening to the officers, clearly, but there's two aspects to that. They're not listening to the officers on this lawfare problem, and then on what Mark Francois was talking about in the defence situation, they're not listening to the officers on that. Now, I sat behind General Sir Richard Barron's in Defence Committee in 2018 with Admiral George Amberless and Air Marshal Baz North, and they read Defence Committee the Riot Act, that we were in a different climate with Russia, and we were facing threats that the military could no longer defend against. Now, that was 2018. Now, what's happening is that officers are not being listened to, and I can go one beyond them because I've interacted with numerous chiefs of defence staff on this issue. The government are not listening to the military officers. The military officers are no longer in charge, and the ministers are clearly come and go like the wind. They're irrelevant. So who is running the show? Well, I'm going to submit it's the permanent secretaries. Now, the question now is, Julia, are our permanent secretaries cleverer than Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin?
And the answer is no. Yeah, exactly.
No, they're not. Now, I think this situation is untenable because I can go one better. General David Petraeus came over to the UK in 2018 and told our government that they would have to stop the lawfare because it would affect morale, retention, recruitment, fighting capability, and the United States would no longer be able to fight alongside British troops, that those troops would have to take a retrograde step backwards to targeting because they wouldn't be allowed to fight alongside US troops. Now, they didn't even listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this thing, it just kind of defies any common sense, doesn't it? David, a fantastic call. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And great work that you've been doing, David and Exeter there. Just a very quick response from Philip on that.
Well, the other thing that David didn't bring out, but I'm sure he would have done, is the fact of the hold that Sinn Féin seem to have over the current government. Sinn Féin are rewriting history in Northern Ireland. They're rewriting the history of the Troubles, and they're doing it. They're doing it very well. But what they're doing is they're telling a completely different story, trying to make out the British military and the security forces as being all evil and them being all right.
Exactly. Lots more texts and messages coming in about Ukraine as well, but I've got a call I want to get to. Larry is in Merseyside and she wants to talk about migration. Very good afternoon to you, Larry. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon, Julia. What I want to say is we keep talking about how can we get the migrants back out when they've arrived in the boats, not the boots.
We should stop the boots too.
Yeah, I want to know why we can't use the RAF planes like the ones that they used to bring the soldiers back from Iraq, Iran, or different places like that. Because there's planes at RAF Rise Norton, all in hangars, ready to fly off at any time.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't cost us anything. And the other thing, there's the military police there who could sort out the security.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. None of this is beyond the wit of man. And again, paying people 25 grand to leave, I mean, that's utterly absurd, isn't it? I'd love to get your response to this, Larry. Just had breaking news in terms of what Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, wants to announce in terms of changes. And this is specifically not was, the stuff we'd already heard earlier this week, but about the right to, indefinite leave to remain and full settlement. Illegal migrants, those who arrived, by illegal means, like by boats and lorries, will have to wait up to 30 years before they can get their permanent settlement. Would you welcome that?
Certainly not.
You want no settlement, full stop?
No, they should get off that boat, be processed.
There you go.
And straight back from RAF Bryce Norton. And once you've seen a military policeman, which I have many times because I've called them to courts to give evidence on behalf of soldiers.
Yeah.
You won't.
You wouldn't mess with them. Well, there you are then. I mean, Larry's seen, so that's the thing. Philip, I mean, it's extraordinary, but I mean, we keep seeing this, it's almost a competition, is it, 5-year wait, 10-year wait, 20-year wait, no, a 30-year wait. But the key thing is, we don't want them in the country, we don't want them here for 30 years, we don't want them here at all.
Correct.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, and Larry was completely right. Bring them in, process them, and put them straight out again. And if we can't land in their home country, we drop them in Rwanda. Oh, did I mention the Rwanda word again?
Thank you very much indeed for that. 12:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about the small matter of, I don't know, does it really matter? Freedom of speech. Yeah, I think a lot of us think it does. And a so-called inclusive, or that's what they claim to be, cinema has cancelled a film about free speech. Well, we're going to be talking to the co-author of that film. You'll know him well on this show, the editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:37 is the time. Now, often when in the studio, I have the next guest, young Tom Slater, sitting in the studio with me, giving his tuppence worth on all the news. Well, this time, he is in the news. He is the subject of the news. Tom Slater is editor of Spiked Online and joins us right now to talk about, well, turns out you've been cancelled, Tom.
Yes, and our documentary about free speech, no less, has been cancelled.
Indeed.
So
well, look, I mean,
the irony wasn't lost on us.
No,
definitely.
indeed. I mean, you know, well, by an inclusive cinema chain. Look, we talked about it on the show because, and again, you know me, I don't blow smoke up anyone's backside. I think it's genuinely brilliant documentary. The sort of documentary BBC Panorama used to make when they did good ones. They didn't just make stuff up that people had said about, you know, all the different cases of where people have been, you know, basically investigated just for, you know, just going about their daily, completely lawful business and be investigated by the police and really been quite, you know, had some pretty harrowing experiences. And you've delved deep and spoken to people at length, and it's an absolutely fascinating documentary. I do advise anyone to go and look at your website and your Twitter feed to go and look at it. But you were going to do basically a screening next Tuesday, I think it was, and you'd booked a cinema and everything was fine. And then what happened?
Yes, exactly as you say. We were going to have the screening and a Q&A for the documentary Think Before You Post. Everything was all lined up. Tickets were selling well. We were looking forward to a great night. And then on Tuesday evening, the venue, Rich Mix in East London, sent us an email saying that they would be cancelling the booking because the film and the event did not align with its values. So clearly free speech isn't one of those. They suggested that the content of the film and the speakers on the post-screening Q&A were not known to them. I let people make their own minds up, but the documentary was already out and all of the speakers who were booked to speak were in the film itself. So
I mean, these weren't controversial people. I mean, there were people like, you know, Alison Pearson, a Daily Telegraph columnist, an ordinary couple. I mean, people who've been found to have done nothing wrong, who just were exercising perfectly normal, routine speech that other people would exercise in their daily lives.
No, you're exactly right, Julia. That's a real theme of the film. Of course, we should stand up for free speech regardless of who's spouting what. But one of the key themes of this documentary was that you had a journalist in the form of Alison Pearson, you had two concerned parents in Boreham Wood, and a former soldier in Wales who were all really put through the ringer, visited by police, in some cases arrested. In the case of Jamie Michael, the former soldier, held on remand for 17 days, despite having said nothing hateful whatsoever. So to cancel us and to implying that this is some kind of questionable exercise that we're engaged in was particularly ridiculous, I would say.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, when you got this message from this supposedly inclusive cinema, who do have some quite ridiculous things. I mean, on their actual on their website, they say how inclusive they are, but they informed you by email saying, since confirming this booking, you say it's come to light that the content and speakers featured do not align with our values and missions here at Rich Mix. Our founding objectives are to support marginalised communities, primarily communities facing racial inequity, promote intercultural understanding, eliminate racial discrimination and foster equality of opportunity through arts and culture. And the nature of the event, they say, was not fully disclosed to us upon booking, but presumably you said we'd like to do a screening of our documentary called Think Before You Post. I'm not quite sure what more you could have given them, but what have you responded to them? What have you written back?
So it's one of those things where our main concern is to find another venue, which we've been working flat out to do. They have offered to refund us the money that we paid up front. And I hope that, and we wanted to make a fuss in the court of public opinion. Yeah. They made this decision. We think it reflects an intolerance on the part of the cultural sector more broadly, to be perfectly frank. I do note that the gentleman who emailed us notifying us that the booking had been cancelled had his pronouns in his email signature, which might tell you something about the kind of atmosphere at these organisations.
But this is a cinema, and the Rich Mix Cinema is in Bethnal. Apologies, we've got a slide today. I do apologise. The Rich Mix Cinema in Bethnal Green, East London. They've hosted some other sort of, I would say, quite controversial figures in their time. I mean, some prominent left-wing MPs being hosted. I mean, they're quite happy to have Zara Sultana there, an event in October, Time to Stop the Far Right. I mean, so I think we know where their politics lie, don't we? But, I mean, can you take any legal action against them?
So it's something, of course, that we've been looking at. As I say, our main concern right now is to make sure this event goes ahead.
Yeah. Has anyone got a cinema they can screen their video? Can you get in touch with me and we'll pass it on to Tom? But you should take legal action.
And many people have been in touch, and we thank them for it.
Oh, wonderful. But you, I mean, lots of people I've seen online have said, look, it's a private business. They can choose who they want to have in their cinema and choose, you know, who they don't want to have. But actually, they couldn't say, for instance, we don't want any black people or we don't want any gay people. That would be illegal against the law. But is it not also against the law to ban people because you don't agree with their political views?
Well, this is something that we'll definitely look into. At the same time, of course, you have private venues as well within their rights to decide who they want to screen and don't. The thing I would ask them to is, once you've already committed to screening something, maybe hold to that rather than folding to pressure, whether that was internal, external, I don't know, I can only speculate. So that's really the issue here. Of course, they can screen and host whoever they want, but it surely reflects a broader intolerance if they're very prescriptive in terms of who they're willing to host and who they are.
Well, indeed. Well, we know a lot about this, but ironically, it comes as the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has appointed Lord MacDonald to review how public order powers are applied online after a series of what she called egregious arrests. She said that officers should not be policing social media posts. This comes after Graham Linehan, the Irish comedy writer, was detained by 5 armed officers when he arrived at Heathrow. And I know who features in your documentary, Maxie Allen, who's a producer at Times Radio, and his partner, Rosalind Levine, wrongfully arrested by 6 officers in January over emails to and about their child's school. And they've actually agreed to a £20,000 payout by the police. And that's very, very clear that the police were in the wrong there. But we keep being told, we've had Home Secretary after Home Secretary under the Tories saying, police shouldn't be doing this. And now we've got yet another Home Secretary under the Labour saying, police shouldn't be doing this. It doesn't seem to ever stop the police doing it.
It doesn't, and the police are a big part of the problem. We've seen those numbers for arrests for communication offences shoot up in recent years. But if you look at the number that actually results in convictions and sentencing, that number is going down. So this isn't just a question of the law, it's a question of how the police are choosing to apply it and applying it very overzealously. Maybe it's going to take a few more payouts, maybe it's going to take a few more court cases to force the police to do what the politicians have failed to make them do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck with finding a new venue. Anything we can do to help, do let us know. Tom Slater there, editor of Spiked Online. Talks a lot about cancellation, and they've been cancelled. Philip Ingram, I mean, it is just extraordinary. So, a film about the right to free speech doesn't align with our values. Well, what are your values then?
Well, it's clear they're not free speech. You know, their values don't extend to free speech, and they're not inclusive because they only want to be inclusive for people that agree with their element and interpretation of inclusivity.
It's quite bizarre.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely bizarre.
It is really strange, as if in some way that's a threat.
Yeah.
To, you know, and again, I mean, again, you might say, well, I don't really want to have a Nazi rally here, you know, but I mean, I just find it, again,
but then,
that's different.
As Tom said, whenever you make the booking and you go through the questions, you go, yes, we will accept your booking and accept your money. Then that's a contractual agreement. They should stand by it.
I think they should be prosecuted if they breach contract.
Yeah.
But also I think under that's civil law. I think if they've broken the law in terms of protected, free speech.
Well. And if they're advertising themselves as an inclusive event space, they're not, and therefore they're misrepresenting themselves.
As soon as someone says they're inclusive, absolutely, that is literally the opposite of what they are. Just say we got this Home Office press release related to this announcement about people having to wait extraordinary 30 years before they can actually get settled leave to remain in this country. Illegal migrants and visa overstayers would have to wait up to 30 years to settle, removing the prospect of long-term residence and security in the UK. In contrast, doctors and nurses working in the NHS will be able to settle after 5 years. So this is about, although she's done this big announcement earlier in the week about illegal migration, we've now got a major announcement about legal migration, if those who are working here, and she says play by the rules, have arrived legally. But again, I think, as our caller Larry just pointed out, if you arrive here illegally, you should never get the leave to remain, because you shouldn't be here 30 years. Yeah. You shouldn't be here 30 months. You shouldn't be here 30 days.
You shouldn't be here 30 hours. You're bussed from beach of arrival to airport of departure and leave.
Yeah, it's just, it's almost like you think, oh, they get it. Oh, no, they don't get it. They're basically admitting, we can't get rid of these people. You could, if you had the will, you could. 12:47 is the time. Up next, we're going to be talking about a report that's coming out later today from the COVID inquiry. I don't hold out much hope, but this little report, mini report, is basically going to look at what the government's response was to COVID. I think we all know they're going to say, should have locked down sooner, because that seems to be the solution from all the people who are frankly too stupid to actually look at the statistics on whether lockdowns make any difference to people's lives or not. We're going to talk to the Sun's Ross Clark about this up next. Do stay tuned. This is Talk.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:50 is the time. Ian Collins is going to be here in just a couple of moments. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram's still with me. And right now we're joined by a columnist on The Sun and prolific author on all things sensible, Ross Clark, who joins us. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Now, this time, instead of net zero or many other topics I've talked to you about, I want to talk to you about COVID. It's a long time ago now. I think a lot of people like to just wipe those mad years from existence. But we can't do that because A, we've got an ongoing COVID inquiry, B, pretty much every problem we've got in society right now is a result of policies during COVID. And C, they'll probably lock us down again if we don't prove how mad it was in the first place. Now, this is a problem because today we've got a report out today from the COVID inquiry from Baroness Hallett, who's chairing that inquiry, into the government's response to COVID. And my guess is it's going to say, oh, we should have locked down sooner. What are you expecting?
Exactly that, Julia. And I think when this report drops, it's going to become even more obvious what a mistake it was to put this inquiry in the hands of the lawyers rather than the hands of scientists and people who should have been looking into this, because the lawyers have interpreted their role as a sort of show trial of the government of the day. And they've become preoccupied with the issue of the processes of decision-making in Downing Street and Whitehall.
And who wrote what nasty WhatsApp about someone else?
Yes, yeah, exactly. That sort of thing. We've learnt loads about that, and not the least bit interest in perhaps the single most important issue is where did this virus come from? When Michael Gove raised that issue in the inquiry, if you remember, he was just shut down by the KC. I don't want to get into that. He said, well, he said, well,
where did it come from?
Why aren't you interested in that
but
fundamental
also
issue?
the basic science. We were constantly told we were following the science, cap T, cap S, copyright, and it wasn't. There's no such thing as the science on any topic whatsoever, but least of all a new virus and how to handle it. We did, however, have pre-pandemic planning, and everyone thinks that Sweden went out on a limb and did a wild, wacky experiment that a lot of people think didn't pay off. And of course, those people haven't bothered looking at the stats, which show absolutely categorically, without a shadow of a doubt, that Sweden did better than anywhere else because they didn't lock down. But crucially, they were following the pre-pandemic planning that the World Health Organization had signed off on, that our own government had done and had signed off on. And we, like many other countries, our governments, our politicians, pushed on by the media and social media bots, just completely panicked, went, and did the exact opposite of what we'd always planned to do in the event of a pandemic. And for some reason, people think that the problem is that we didn't panic and do it sooner, rather than we shouldn't have done it at all.
Yeah, well, there was a carefully laid pandemic plan which had been worked out over a number of years, which was that you didn't close down society totally because it would be futile to do that. What you had to do, you had to manage things so that, except the infection was going to go through the population, but manage it in such a way that there weren't going to be huge spikes of infections at any one time, which would overload the NHS. So squash the sombrero, as you remember. Yep. Boris Johnson put it when he showed us that graph of how the government was going to manage it.
And this is what the likes of Chris Whitty was saying only 2 weeks before we actually went into full lockdown.
Yeah, well, on the Thursday, 12th of March 2020 was the first of the Downing Street press conferences, and it was absolutely clear from that conference what the strategy was. And, I said it was the squash the sombrero strategy, try to prevent the, spikes overwhelming the NHS. And not just Chris Whitty, but also Patrick Vallance, who's now a government science minister, Labour science minister, made absolutely that point. Now, over the following weekend, we know there was a panic, and Whitehall, the government, they did this about turn, and suddenly they decided that we were going to have to lock down.
Yeah. Well, Neil Ferguson from Imperial College presented some numbers to Dominic Cummings, who lost his mind and decided that 500,000 people were going to die of COVID if we didn't lock down, and suddenly we locked down. But you, like me, I'm guessing, thought, well, these people have been very sensible up to this point, and if Whitty and Vallance, who are eminent in their fields, if they think that we do now need to lock down, there must be new information that we weren't aware of. But there wasn't.
Well, the only new information there was, as you say, this Imperial College study, which
was utter nonsense.
Predicted that 500,000 people could die if nothing was done. It predicted 250 million people. 250,000 people would die if there was minimal. Intervention by the government, and their modelling said that introduced all these social distancing, a number of them actually short of lockdown. The Imperial College never modelled a full lockdown, but they said all these other social distancing measures, we could reduce the death toll to about 20,000, and that was totally, totally offbeat. We, in the end, we, a lot more deaths than that. The infection went through the population. Whether we could have avoided more deaths by having an earlier lockdown, I doubt it. If we could have. There's basically there were this was going to go through the population.
Yeah, I mean, that's
anyway,
it. And
a certain number of
said
people were going to die. And as you say, Sweden, which took a different view, they actually fared better than Britain did and most other countries.
Yeah, but the thing is they had higher COVID deaths in the first year, but again, some people were kept alive longer. But again, this idea that the whole population was at risk, including young children, they kept their schools open under the age of 16. No one missed a day of school. We, apart from Italy, had the most school closures, apart from like lunatics in California and America. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, those schools were basically closed for about 2 years. But even the wearing of the masks, don't wear the mask, they don't work. Oh, no, you've got to wear a mask, legally required to wear a mask. I mean, and we know from a lot of those WhatsApps from Matt Hancock that were leaked and that Isabel Oakeshott brilliantly exposed to the world, that actually most of the policy was made on a complete whim, no science behind it whatsoever. It was all politicking, a lot of it goaded on by the media, who still, by the way, have not faced their reckoning. But I know you were a solid voice on this. Again, I was fooled in the early weeks. Thank God I was persuaded by some very sensible people to see sense in it. And I doubt, though, we're going to get much sense from that report. Ross Clark, brilliant to have you on the show, columnist at The Sun. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram, I mean, there's just no doubt. Let's talk about Cabinet Secretary now. So Chris Wormald, he was at the Health Department. They're going to point fingers. But this is a whole government issue, isn't it?
It is. And actually what we want out of the inquiry is, because a pandemic threat is still the number one threat to this country. So we want the lessons that come out to say, this went wrong, this is how we would do it right in the future, in any future pandemic, and you need to get into the detailed science behind it. That's not going to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. It is extraordinary. And it's, again, when people talk about inquiries like the grooming inquiry, you think, be careful what you wish for, because if you're going to end up with something like this with Baroness Hallett, I mean, she's so out of her depth, it's embarrassing. Anyway, brilliant to have you on the show, Philip. Always enjoy having on, especially on a day where we're talking so much about defence issues as well. Delighted to say, joining us, he's bothered to come back into work again, Ian Collins. Where were you the last couple of days then?
How are you doing, love? All right.
I don't know what happened there. What the hell was
because I was about to cough. And I thought, if I start to speak, I'm just going to sound demented.
We missed
might as well go with it. Thank you very much.
We've had Miss Johnson-Gullis, who did a fantastic job, I have to say.